Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge a historical shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area. We recognize these original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, the October 13th, 2022 council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. And I should just make a note, just let folks know that Councillor Dayu is joining us via Zoom in accordance with the procedural bylaw for some unwellness at home. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today on any matter? Thank you. Mayor's remarks, just one short note that this is technically the last regular meeting of council of this term, but we do have a special meeting. So our real last meeting will be in a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to make note of that. Adoption of the minutes, please.
Moved by Councillor Berry, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved that the following meeting minutes be approved as circulated. August 11th, 2022 regular council meeting minutes. Sorry, that was the August 11th public meeting minutes. August 15th regular council meeting minutes and October 4th special meeting minutes.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There are no public meetings, but we have a delegation. So we'll bring in April Best Sararis and Serge LaPalme. Oh, sorry, yes, and Sean O'Callahan, the planner. My apologies. Struggling with the new lights. Very bright.
Here we go. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning to you all. And Ms. Best Sararis, I know you have a presentation, so if you'd like to take us through that. And just, I'm not sure if your client is familiar with delegations. This is an opportunity to share information with council. There is no debate. The issue is later on the agenda. So we're receiving information from you on this matter at the time. Okay. So if you want to take us through your presentation, that'd be great.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak this application today. I'd like to thank Township staff for working with us to reach this point in the application process. Just for the record, I'm April Best Sararis from Reef Way Planning and Associates, located at 44 King William Street, Unit A in Huntsville, Ontario, P1H1G3. So I'm acting as agent on behalf of Natalie and Serge LaPalme, the owners of 1077 Hollow Road, being the property abutting the road allowance that is subject to this application. The owners are here today as well to answer any questions of council. I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, so I don't know at this point if staff shares it or I'm happy to share the PowerPoint.
Could you just, I'm just gonna ask you to hold on for a minute. We have a blank screen in front of us and we're just having a small technical challenge. So
no worries.
You may be able to see us, but we can't see your presentation. Okay. Okay, we're back.
Perfect. Perfect, thank you. So this is a location map here showing the subject lands outlined in red at 1077 Hollow Road. Next slide, please. The purpose of this application is to close an approximately 0.2 acre portion of the road allowance that was intended to contain a turnaround at the end of Bamamba Road as illustrated on Plan 544 dated December 19th, 1972. You can see an excerpt here of that old plan of subdivision from 1972 where our client's property is outlined in red. And the portion of the road allowance that is proposed to be closed is highlighted in yellow there. So acquisition of this portion of the road allowance would provide additional lot area to my client's lands to construct a detached garage intended for storage that will meet all the minimum required setbacks. So just a quick overview of what I will be discussing during my presentation. So as per the Township's official plan and policy for sale and other disposition of land, road allowances leading to water are generally not to be conveyed to abutting landowners. So the subject road allowance does not abut or lead to water, and the closure of this portion of the road allowance would not have any impacts on the road or access to adjacent properties. Therefore, all the policies are being met by the subject road allowance closing application. Bamamba Road and its turnaround evidences a historic situation that will not be impacted by the subject road allowance being closed. Furthermore, the identified turnaround is not being used for public travel, and the owner is the last property at the end of this road allowance. So our firm and the owners have had ongoing discussions with the Township's planning department regarding the proposal, whereby staff indicated their support for this closure and purchase by the owners at the on-site meeting on June 28th of this year. The subject application was submitted with the understanding that we had staff supports on the application. It is now our understanding that staff have some concerns with the proposed road allowance closure that could be addressed by reducing the lot area of the portion of the road allowance to be closed, which we are happy to discuss in greater detail if council wishes. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan of the subject lands proposed road allowance to be closed. Currently, the subject lands are highly constrained due to frontage on both Quagama Lake, as you can see to the north there, and Big Beaver Lake to the south, as well as dead-end roads on both the west and east sides of the property. There's not sufficient level area to the west of the existing dwelling on the property to locate a garage without encroaching on a portion of the township road allowance, which is why we're here today, while also being set back from the hydro lines bisecting the property. I know it might be kind of tricky to see, but there are hydro lines that bisect the western portion of the property, which again creates some limitations for the location of a proposed garage for storage. Again, the proposed garage is the most desirable location, as it will have minimal visual impacts from either of the lakes or adjacent properties. It is a cleared area which is currently surrounded by existing vegetation. There's also an existing septic system on the opposite side of the dwelling, so that's the eastern portion of the dwelling, which limits a garage in that location. And again, there's a turnaround for Hollow Road on the east side, which also creates additional limitations. And then there's steep topography that does limit the garage. So we have sited the garage in the most level and cleared area of the property, which again does encroach on a portion of the road allowance, which is why we're here today. Next slide, please. So here's a drone photo of the subject, or our client's land essentially is to the north there. And then the existing turnaround of Bamamba Road is to the south. And then there's also indicating the location of that portion of the road allowance to be closed. So again, this turnaround is functional and it's located entirely outside of the cul-de-sac that's shown on that old plan of subdivision from 1972. And the actual turnaround location is greater than 20 meters from the portion of the road allowance that we're proposing to close. So again, a significant distance between the two. So closing this portion would not have any impacts on the usability of that turnaround. Next slide, please. So this is a drone photo from the opposite view. So right at the bottom of this picture is my client's existing dwelling. And then looking to the north is Bamamba Road. So again, you can see the existing turnaround location labeled there and the location of the portion of the road allowance that's proposed to be closed, and that significant distance between the two, just again illustrating from a different angle. Next slide, please. So again, as I indicated previously, the township's official plan and policy for sale and other disposition of land does not permit road allowances leading to water to be conveyed to abutting property owners. Just to reiterate again, the subject road allowance does not abut or lead to water. And then the adjacent property to the northwest has an existing driveway off of Bamamba Road, which you can see on the northern portion of northwestern portion of this aerial photography. And it's located entirely outside of that proposed road allowance to be closed. Therefore, the closure of this portion of the road allowance would not have any impacts on the road or access to adjacent properties. Again, Bamamba Road is a turnaround that it has been historically used and functional since the plan of subdivision back in 1972. And therefore, all the policies are being met by the subject road allowance closure application. Next slide, please. So here's some additional photos of the road and the existing turnaround. So top left there is Bamamba Road when you're standing at the turnaround. Top right and bottom left are just the existing turnaround location. As you can see, it's well vegetated around there. So any relocation of the existing turnaround would require significant vegetation removal in that location. And you can also see in the bottom left that there's Big Beaver Lake in the distance from the existing turnaround. And then the bottom right and then the further right photo is just illustrating the subject road allowance and how it's very significantly vegetated currently. Next slide, please. Perfect. So thank you again for taking the time to hear this application and for allowing me to present the justification for closing and conveying this portion of the road allowance adjacent to our client's property. As indicated previously, the subject application meets all applicable township policies, and the subject portion of the road allowance is unused by the township for a turnaround at the end of the Mamba Road. Therefore, we respectfully request approval of this application. I'm available to answer any questions of council, and also we have the property owners here today to speak further to the application and again answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and I do want to thank you for the clarity of the slides that you've provided. The aerial photographs and the detail is extremely helpful. So thank you for that. Thank you for the detail there. Mr. LaPalme, is there anything that you wanted to say on this matter, or has Sarah said it all for you?
My name is Serge LaPalme, and I am retired after 61 years as an insurance executive, where I was CEO for over 46 years. So I'm here really in an attempt to protect our family, because this cottage was bought hopefully in perpetuity to be offered to our family. The property itself is 1.67 acres, and some surveyors have called it for as much as 2 acres totally. We front on Coagama Lake by 230 feet, and we go right to the edge. As a matter of fact, the turnabout per se does not reach the lake at all. We're there in effect. And the frontage on Beaver Lake is 485 feet. So as you can see, we are surrounded by 2 lakes, which offers us great restriction given the 100 feet markers where anyone can put a building. Our application really relative to the allowance which we're asking to be considered is to build a building of 750 square feet, 750 square feet, plus maybe another 50 to 100 square feet if necessary, or in total maybe 1,200 square feet. And at present, of course, the restrictions would not allow that, because our deck comes to approximately, if my memory serves me right, it's 6.25 meters from the side of the deck and 7.2 meters from the actual deck. So the I call it an encroachment per se, comes right up to our property. So if I'm sitting on my deck, I'm looking downwards because the topography of the land does not support at all. And I'll tell you why in a second. The allocation per se. And as was mentioned before, if one looks at the reserved area, it is approximately 870.5 square meters or 9,000 feet. So what the township basically is reserving is 2 lots 50 by 100. If you can imagine that, 2 lots 50 by 100 to make a turnaround. Right, very, very close to 10,000. Well, very, very close to 5,000 square feet per property. So, in effect, if that were to be true, there would be enough space there reserved by the township to build 2 huge homes on a 50 by 100 lot, and that gives you some visibility. My problem with it, Madam Mayor, is if you take the palm of your hand and you drop a dime. The dime really is what I'm trying to deal with, and I'm restricted it to even reach that dime. At either end of the road allowances, it's already been addressed. There are the turnabouts and the hydro lines, etc. In June, we had Mr. Callahan visit our location, and I was very grateful for that. He walked the entire landscape, totally from one end to another. And after it was all done, I asked him, does my request make sense? Because I didn't want to entertain the cost or bother council unless it did make sense. And his reply was, it certainly does. I can see the restrictions that this is causing you. And I said to him, do you think I'll have your support? And he said, oh, it's subject to, of course, but yes, from what I can see, I can certainly visualize that you are totally restricted and really can't move. So we went on that basis, believing that the sincerity of the comment and hired at the request of Township planners to help us out. My concern is as follows. I don't deny that 50 to 75 years ago, things were very, very different. And Bibama Road, of course, exists and still exists to this day. But it never reaches either my property, in fairness, or the neighbor's property next door, because we are at the total end of it. In the staff report to council, it is admitted that this was for a subdivision. Well, the subdivision is done. It's completed. There's no more, if you follow the housing project on Bibama Lake, I don't know of any vacancy around the lake at all available. So that's been done. The second thing that concerns me a little bit is it is admitted that Bibama Lake does not reach the water in any way, shape, or form. And the point that concerns me perhaps the very most as a professional businessman is it is being denied with no knowledge of its financial impact. I personally believe that if a financial analysis were done as to the possibility of extending Bibama Road, that the costs would be totally unreasonable and unaffordable given the need per se. There is no need for this in any way, shape, or form. There is an existing turnabout existing on Bibama Road. There is no need for another. Bibama Road does not reach Kawagama Lake. We opine that our request does not create any concerns whatsoever to our neighbors. Our neighbor, as a matter of fact, at the lakeside, has just been given the authority to build a garage, which he has done, which was noted by Mr. Callahan, and already has a boathouse. Our request does not cause any inconvenience, economic loss, or harm to the township. The topography of the land does not support a turnaround as this described. Given that if it were to happen, there would have to be a culvert placed in the basin at the end, which would be 4 feet deep, and the elevation of the land to meet Bibama Road might be as high as 3 to 4 feet. The costs of this would be totally prohibitive. The location per se described infringes on private property as it admitted. Our request does not infringe on wetlands. It doesn't infringe on the water basin or the shoreline of Kawagama Lake, which incidentally is deemed to be pristine where we are. The turnabout would not be readily accessible to the general public because there is no general public there. It's all ownership. To access the dedicated turnabout would require engaging the neighbor's property. And here again, I emphasize cross wetland, the clearing of the land, build accessible walkway and driveways to a level of at least 3 to 4 feet beyond where it is today, because it's a down curve that goes down. There is no damage whatsoever to the ecology in us building that little building. There is no compromise or damage to the shoreline. There was a suggestion at one point by Mr. Callahan that we give rise to a boathouse. Given that we are in a small bay with about 6 owners, would infringe on their visibility. There are no boat garages on the bay, and I don't believe that that would be allowed. The boathouse would not store a 23-foot pontoon boat, nor any of our water properties, or for that matter, our winter skidoos. Furthermore, at this time of the year, the water has dropped by 2 feet already. And for at least 100 feet or more, we are on dry land on Kawagama Lake. And of course, hopefully we'll have enough snow this winter to be able to regain our water level. I believe that the request per se is sound, is reasonable, and causes no harm. As a matter of fact, if a compromise had to be made, then fine, we're looking at that. But to basically say we're not going to support it, not even having done a study as to what the cost would be to do what's not needed at all, seems to me very, very significant indeed. Our motive here, our dedication and commitment is to protect our wetland, to protect our basin, to protect our shoreline, to protect our visibility, to do everything we possibly can to retain the beautiful place we have. At this point in time, we are limited by the by those restrictions. When I bought the property, I will admit that I knew that that was there. But over time now, close to 12 years, going on to 13 years since we've been visiting this area, and I have been coming to this area for 35 years, I knew what it was all about. But the fact is, what we're asking does not disturb one iota of any concerns which this council or township might have. And all that I ask is you do unto me as I would do unto you, and be fair in your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you for your commentary. I do have a question in the drawing of the house, and admittedly, it's a beautiful property. What is the extended building? Is there already a garage there that's attached to the house? In the aerial photograph, there's a.
No, that is true. There is a garage there, and but I can only house a certain amount. You know, where do we put our cars in the wintertime? You know, we have this place, right? The garage is there, and I will admit to that, but it can only occupy and house certain vehicles, correct? The house per se is close to 5,000 square feet, and we have a fairly large family and grandchildren. In the wintertime, you can't leave your cars outside, they don't start. So we need the garage to put them in. We do use the garage for repair facilities and things of this nature. My concern now, and what brought this about, is to house my boats really at the marina now is in excess of $5,000 a year just to house the boats. I mean, that's very, very significant over and above the $10,440 a year I pay in taxes. You know, so when you start off with a huge bill, it's very high.
So, Mr. Lapalm, that's a yes. There's a garage there.
I do have a garage. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Dayu, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. And I'm over here on Zoom for those who might not recognize where I am in chambers. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, would you be seeking to create access to the new garage from Bimaba Road or from elsewhere on your property?
No, not at all.
So from the property itself?
Yes, that's correct. I go down the hill and I go into the garage. It's
Okay.
right below. So in other words, first of all, there is no official road per se or driveway or anything from Bibama to my property. As a matter of fact, Bibama does not touch my property at all.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
My apologies if I missed this during your presentation, but I'm wondering, given that you access the property from Hollow Road and your driveway is off Hollow Road, why it is impossible for you to build the structure on the southeastern portion of the property or southeast from the house itself?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I can speak to that through you, Mayor. So essentially, to the east side of the existing dwelling is a septic. It's a large septic bed. So I think you're speaking to the south eastern portion. So we had looked at different locations for a garage, but the challenge with this is there's a 30-meter setback from the shoreline to Big Beaver Lake and Kawakma Lake. So when you're looking at that 30-meter setback, it is really highly constrained for the property. And so we were looking at trying to find a location that we could meet those setbacks from the shoreline, as well as not impede anything else that's on the property, hydro lines, topography, or anything like that. The other thing is that portion of the shoreline is really well vegetated. It's a nice, small lake, Big Beaver Lake, and our clients would like to keep that very natural and really preserve it as much as possible. So really where we have the garage was the most level and cleared location as is. I believe Sarah has something else to add.
Yes.
As well.
First of all, we have the septic tank there and we have the hydro wires that prevent it, which is basically on the north side of that stretch of land that you're alluding to. But the other most important thing about our property is that we have voluntarily created a path there for neighbors to walk along Beaver Lake. And every day during the summer, we have people with their dogs and whatnot that crosses 485 feet of my property. And even if I could, I would be very hesitant not to allow my neighbors to use that walkway, which they've been using, I'm told, since day one, way before my time. And it's a natural walkway, natural trail that they use along Beaver Lake over my property, approximately 500 feet. So they actually go from Hollow Drive right across to Bibama on that trail.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions from council about this application? No, okay. Sean, did you have anything to add at this moment? I know it's on the agenda later, so you may want to speak to it then.
Yeah, I can reserve my comments until the agenda item.
Okay, thank you for your time and for sharing the information with us that you have. It's been very helpful. As you know, the item is later on in the planning section of our agenda. So we'll thank you for your time and carry on with our meeting.
Thank you so much.
May I ask just one comment, please? We are in fact willing to compromise, and we're asking for the help of Sean Callahan and others to find a way to allow us to build this thing. You know, if it's impossible to get the whole, then you certainly don't need 9,000 square feet when there's at least another 45,000 square feet, even more than that. There's 65 feet on the other side of the basin, 45 feet there. So by the time they build, I mean, it's really coming close to my property when in fact, giving up, you know, a couple of thousand feet does not affect at all, if in fact that's what's desired. So
Thank
we
you
are
for your-
certainly looking for help and a
Mr.
compromise.
LaPalme, we understand your position very, very clearly. And we will take all of your comments and this presentation into consideration when we get to the item on the agenda. So I would thank you again for your time. And we'll have a resolution to receive the presentation.
By Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council received a delegation from April Bessararis and Mr. Serge Lapalme regarding a road allowance closing on Hollow Road for information.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you both again for your time and your clarity on the matter. Okay, we have a resolution to go into closed session.
Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor Short. Read be it resolved, council adjourns its open session at 9:27 a.m. to proceed into closed session for the purposes of discussing the following. Personal matters about an identifiable individual in accordance with section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 as amended. A position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local boards in accordance with section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 as amended, shared services agreement. 3, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board in accordance with section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 as amended, integrity commissioner services. 4, a plan of procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board in accordance with section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 as amended, fire services agreement.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We are back live and reconvened. Can I have a resolution to resume the open session?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council adjourns its closed session at 10:31 a.m. and open session resumed.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up, item 10 is building and bylaw enforcement business. Greg is away, but the report is there. I'm going to ask if council has any questions, but I don't know. I don't know if the CAO can answer them if you do. No questions? Okay, resolution, please.
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Counselor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives report BLDG 1322 regarding monthly activities submitted by Greg Moore dated October 13th, 2022 for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Parks, Rec and Trails business is next. We'll bring in Mr. Card. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
A couple of things for you. The first one up is the Oxon Lake Community Center Committee update. I think as we said last time, it's nice to see committee meetings back in swing and people chatting about getting the community moving again. I don't know if council has any questions about anything that's in the minutes from that group. Anything you want to report on that, Chris?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a resolution?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Counselor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives the September 26th, 2022 Oxton Lake Community Center Committee meeting minutes.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. A report about Thomas contracting and plowing the Big East parking lot.
Yes, this is a renewal of a contract which we had in place last year as well for winter plowing over at the Big East lot. This is to just approve the bylaw to enter into agreement.
Any questions from council? Resolution, please.
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Deputy Mayor Dennison. Be it resolved that Council receives an agreement with Francis Thomas Contracting for the plowing of Big East parking lot for the 2022-2023 season and directs a bylaw be brought forward authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And monthly activities. What would you like to highlight there for us?
Busy as usual. Of course, this time of year, we're starting to shift into thinking about winter. Getting our ski trails operations up and running has been the main focus for the past several weeks. Council should also be aware next week we'll start winterizing docks at all township landings throughout the township. Other than that, if there's any questions.
Any questions of Chris on the portfolio of Parks, Rec and Trails? Councillor Shortreed.
Chris, I just want to say that I think the timed entrance of the tower has been great. There has not been any lines of parked cars all the times that I've gone by there on the weekends for the last 3-4 weeks, however long they've been doing it. But it looks like it's been very successful there. Very.
Any thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, we've been really excited to be able to roll this out, and the staff have done a fantastic job, as well as Camus, who we've contracted with on this project. And so far it's been working fantastically. It's been very well received. We have one more weekend coming into this weekend that we'll be doing it. And then after that, I'll be able to get a full report from the whole fall color season to learn from and see if there's still any opportunities for improvement. It was just the first year doing this, but the goal was to keep lineups to a limit on the highway, and we're achieving that so far. So thank you very much for the feedback.
That's great. Thank you. Anything further for Chris? Resolution, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Counselor Berry. Be resolved, Council receives report PRT 2522 regarding monthly activities submitted by Chris Card and dated October 13th, 2022.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Exciting to see a new line item in the agenda, environmental business. We'll bring in Melissa Murray, and this is going to be her first environmental monthly report. It's kind of exciting. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Thank you for this, your very first report in your new position. So tell us what you'd like to tell us about everything you're up to.
Indeed. So, as everyone is aware, lots of big projects going on as far as capital projects. So both the Maple Lake Operations Center and the Hawk Lake closure projects are both underway now, with contractors actively working at both of those sites. Lots of discussions and ongoing meetings and workshops and that sort of thing in regards to the Blue Box program transition, and then just regular site activities, getting things ready for winter operations. And just a reminder that we will be moving to winter hours starting on Sunday. And we did have a successful hazardous waste event at Dorset back on September 10th. And then we've just also had the one at Maple Lake last weekend as well. So always good to get people out from there, and a couple of folks from outside of the township coming as well. So people have been really receptive of that expansion in the program. So that's really nice to hear. Whether they're using it or not, maybe not as much as we anticipated, but people are really happy to have that option. So that's great feedback.
Well, it's the first year too, so maybe as word spreads, people will get used to the option, and those external numbers will increase.
For sure.
Deputy Danielson has her hand up.
I really hate to bring this up because I know there's been a lot of angst and a lot of work going into setting hours at the landfills over the years. But I've been hearing a lot of concerns about the need for maybe some review of the hours, given the loss of the Hawk Lake landfill and greater traffic at Maple Lake. I know this is probably the worst time to be thinking about it in the changeover between summer and winter, but just something that a lot of people have asked for a review of hours. And I just kind of wanted to put that out there for consideration going forward.
Yeah, and Melissa, what are your thoughts on that? You're right, Liz. It's kind of not the greatest time of year, but yeah, there's been a lot of concern about the hours. I know we're in the middle of a giant project, but Melissa, thoughts on when that conversation might appear?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. It's certainly a discussion, that we can have, and we can bring some options forward. Doing something immediately, we would have to, Chad, obviously those are contracted services, so they are not included. Any changes there, we would have to negotiate with the contractor there. But if council wishes, I can certainly, bring some things forward. Otherwise, that would be something, with the changes at Maple Lake and the Operations Center there, might be part of a larger discussion there as far as how we want to do things. Changes with landfill hours do take some time to adjust to, and so that's just sort of a factor to keep in consideration. Getting signage and information out to folks is always a bit of a challenge, even though we've changed to winter hours regularly for many years now. That still catches folks off guard. And even this time of year, we still have people showing up at sites for summer hours or for winter hours, even though we've been in summer for a few months. So like I say, I would look for direction from council if that's something you'd like me to bring forward.
I think it's something, and we're very close to the end of the term. There's a new term starting, and projects and priorities for the new council will be in December. That's certainly something that could be considered at that time. Go ahead.
I'm sure this is something that we're doing. I just wanted to double check that the notification is going on the website about the change in hours.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not. We were sent an email, so I'm sure it's not. If not all there already, it will be very shortly.
If I may, we've social media, a notice went out yesterday, and then the website, obviously our calendars, we usually change around to which hours people see first on the website and things like that, to put winter hours sort of at the forefront, just to help folks out with that transition.
Yeah, and you'll never catch everybody. As you say, there's still people coming for winter hours and even though we've just finished summer. So, you know, it is what it is. So we do our best to share the information and hope that folks are out there receiving it. Okay, anything else for Melissa on her first report? Resolution, please.
Moved by Councillor Berry, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that council receives report EB 122 regarding monthly activities submitted by Melissa Murray dated October 13th, 2022.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Public Works business is next. We'll bring in Mr. Thorne. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
A couple of things for you. First of all is the bridge inspection report.
Yeah, so as it shows in the report, this is our second of 3 inspections that we have in place. This was a joint project with the county, another great opportunity to work together with them. And everything turned out really well on the bridges, as you can see in the report here, that the overall condition is good. No major repairs required. And then any small minor repairs that were listed in the inspection, we will add into next year's budget for maintenance.
Thank you. Any questions for Adam on the report? Councillor Dayu.
Thank you. Adam, I was just looking at the replacement values for each of these bridges. And I wonder if you would kindly clarify, what does replacement value mean? Does it mean only if we wanted to replace the bridge exactly the way it is now, this is what current market value would be? Or would it, you know, could you walk us through replacement value? Because I wonder if when the end of the life cycle of any bridge comes to pass, there might even be like a redesign, a thinking about how a bridge might be crafted differently that could reduce the overall cost. Or is that right? Or what are your thoughts?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, these costs that are replacement values that have been listed in this report are based on if the bridge was to fail today and be replaced tomorrow. And that is also including a like for like. So it would be taking one bridge out, replacing it with the exact same style and material as what's currently there. If council, or if we wanted to look at, say, a new build on a bridge, or when a bridge comes close to end of life, we would definitely have to start looking into whether we wanted to have a bridge replaced with very similar building materials, or if there was an option to go with a new design. As you can see from my report, I think the lowest life cycle is 28 years. So there's a lot of information and a lot of technology that can change in 28 years. Even if we started looking at 20 years, you know, starting to prepare ourselves for the replacement of a bridge, it would be almost impossible to forecast what that bridge could look like in 28 years. So that's what the costs here are, and estimated a like for like.
Great, thank you.
Adam, I had a question about the Buckslide Bridge. Of course, it's married to a TSW dam. Are there any challenges in relation? The last time we had to do any work on that bridge, TSW didn't participate, and it ended up costing a little bit more money than anticipated. So does that bridge being attached to the, or I call it married to the TSW, the dam, have any extra challenges?
Through you, Mayor, not really. I mean, I spoke with the engineer who did the inspection at that bridge, and yes, although it is attached to it and it does have a little bit of challenges as far as the water levels when they're inspecting the bridge, that's the main challenge. when it comes time to further inspection, repairs, or even, let's say, a rebuild, we would definitely need to have the other agencies involved with that. And so far, communication has been pretty slow when we try to reach out to them for any information. But respectfully, I think if we got to the point where there was some major repairs required, where that dam might have to be shut off completely to stop the water flow for any kind of underwater works, we would definitely have to look into that further.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the bridge inspection report? Resolution? Oh, sorry, Councillor Barry?
Yeah, I just wondered how this information works with the asset management plan. Does this get updated in the plan? Does it live separate from the plan? Just how are they working together with the bridges and the roads, that type of thing?
Adam?
Again, through you, Mayor, when we do our asset management plan review, all this information gets applied into it. Updated information as to life cycles, costs, and current and future repairs.
And we talked about a little bit about this in our Bear Lake Road discussion, and you can apply it to each of these bridges that, a $3.3 million replacement value today is going to be a very different number in 28 years. But to Adam's point, there could be different, it just could be a completely different situation. Grants could be different. You just never know. So there's certain things you just can't control going forward, especially this long range. Okay, resolution, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Councillor Barry. Be resolved, Council receives report PW 3522 regarding the 2022 bridge and culvert inspections submitted by Adam Thorne dated October 13th, 2022.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Screening and stockpiling of winter sand.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So this proposal, closed, and we received 2 bids, as the report shows. Both of them were over budget, but one was just slightly over budget. So just looking for council's approval to move forward with the winter sand stacking for this year.
Questions, concerns from council? Councillor Dayu?
Well, it doesn't have to do with Adam's recommendation, because I fully concur with Adam's recommendation. I wonder, Adam, I remember last year and the year previous at budget time, we were talking about escalating costs of things. And so it's great to see that what you budgeted came very, very close to the lowest bid. Could you give us a one-line comment on how costs have been increasing or not for these sorts of things year on year, or is this something that we'll have to bear in mind for next year as costs go up, or has it been fairly consistent?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, it's been, I would say, pretty consistent for half of this year, if that makes sense. And I can explain by saying that if we were looking at projects when we were in the budget process this time last year, council may recall that quite a few projects were coming in way under budget. And I think that had a lot to do, my personal opinion was to do with fuel costs. Due to the increased costs and the unknown, I think a lot of places were scared of that, so they were trying to cover themselves. Now, as time has gone on and the season has almost drawing to an end, fuel prices seem to, I know they're fluctuating, but they kind of seem to have leveled out a little bit. And I think a lot more companies are more comfortable with their fuel surcharges and working through that extra cost, that it's not such a major increase. But I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see continuous increases on projects such as this, just due to petroleum products like fuel or anything along that nature.
Thank you.
Yeah, every year we say it's a tough time and things are increasing in price, and this is the toughest budget we've ever had. But I think the residual effects of the pandemic and supply chain challenges will make the next budget process quite a challenge, because as there always is, there's more of a pent-up capital demand than there is money to fund them. So we'll see how it goes. I didn't say we. Anything further for Adam? Resolution, please.
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Deputy Mayor Dennison. Be it resolved, council receives report PW regarding the screening and stockpiling winter sand RFP results submitted by Adam Thorne dated October 13th, 2022. And the council hereby concurs with the recommendations made in the said report and awards the project to Francis Thomas Contracting in the amount of $45,919 plus applicable tax, and that the over budgeted amount of $919 plus applicable tax be funded from the 2022 operational budget.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Monthly activities.
Through you, Mayor. Nothing really to list out of the norm. Winter change or seasonal changeover of equipment, final lawn cutting, things of that nature. And please disregard the Setage Lagoon and the waste columns at the bottom there. This report was put together before Melissa's report was put in, so it was just an overlap.
All right. Thank you for that. Any questions for Adam's report? Monthly activities. Yes, Madam CAO.
It's not a question, but I did wanted to add for council's information, just a little update on the Dorset Rec Center. That the engineer, the contract engineer that we have is currently doing a pre-qualification for contractors to do the work that's required. And then as well, in the meantime, the RFP is being developed. So the project is moving.
Good. Can we make sure that I know it's a small update, but it's important. And we've heard from other members of council that there's a lot of concern about the rec center, and we know that it's a valuable asset. We did say it would be closed for, the remainder of the 2022 calendar year, but folks do want to know. So even though it's only a small update, can we get Chad to make that change on the website, just so people know that it is moving forward? I think it's important to keep the public informed about that. Any questions, comments, thoughts on that? Yeah, I know that you've been hearing a lot, certainly these days. Any other questions for Adam on monthly activities resolution, please?
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Counselor Short. Read be it resolved, council receives public works report PW 3722 regarding monthly activities submitted by Adam Thorne and dated October 13th, 2022 for information.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And brine tank proposal result. It's fun to say brine tanks.
To you, Mayor. Yes, this is another proposal that we put out last month. And as you can see, it did come in under budget. So it's to go further on Jennifer's question earlier is sometimes it's really hard to predict these things. I would have expected we would have been closer to that budget amount, but it's really good to see that it came in under. So yes, just looking for council's approval to have this project move forward.
Any questions or thoughts from council? Nope. Go ahead. Thanks.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Counselor Short. Read be it resolved that council acknowledge receipt of public works report PW 3722 regarding the brine tanks RFP results submitted by Adam Thorne and dated October 13th, 2022. And the council hereby concurs with the recommendations made in the said report and awards the bid to Road Maintenance Equipment and Service Inc. for $36,900 plus applicable tax.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Fire services business is next, so we'll take a minute and bring in the chief. Good morning, Chief.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Just two things for you. First up is the fire protection agreement with Dysart.
Right. The fire protection agreement with Dysart's been ongoing since 2011. Dysart covers Red Pine Lake lots and the Irish Line. In turn, we cover some properties on Quagmire Lake and the end of the airport. It's no cost to either township. It's just to provide the best possible service to both communities.
And as we were talking about, we have talked about in the past, is it's important to have that cross-border coverage just to make sure everybody's protected. Any questions for the chief on the agreement? No, go ahead.
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Deputy Mayor Danson. Be it resolved, Council receives report FD 2122 regarding municipal protection agreement between the Township of Algonquin Highlands and the municipality of Dysart et al. Submitted by Michael French and dated October 13th, 2022. And further, the council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute a municipal protection agreement between the Township of Algonquin Highlands and municipality of Dysart et al. Effective November 1st, 2022 and ending October 31st, 2027.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Monthly activities is next. What would you like to highlight for us?
Yes, there's two things I'd like to highlight. The first is under administration, the collecting and forwarding information to a consultant for a community risk assessment. I just want to make council aware how that procedure went or is going. Last fall, we proposed doing a master fire plan and a community risk assessment for Algonquin Highlands, which was passed and put in this year's budget. Going forward and speaking at the service delivery and then at the CAOs, we found out that the EMS was doing a master plan for EMS across the county. So with the agreement of the township CAOs and the county CAO, we're getting a community risk assessment done at county level. That saves us a lot of money for all the townships because the same information at county level would be used again at municipal level and then used as a master fire plan. So we were already prepared as being a positive, progressive community of doing the master fire plan and the CRA. Now, all 4 townships working together are going to do the CRA, the community risk assessment, and then turn next year, they're going to do their master fire plan. Us working together as 4 townships and a county is a very financially responsible decision. We're saving a lot of money doing this. But as a result of that, the fire master plan will probably be put off to the first quarter of next year. But I just wanted you to be aware of it. The fact that we are doing a master fire plan, it's on the time cycle as appropriate. Normally they're done every 10 years. Our last one was done in 2022. And I think it just shows the progressive council that we have already doing it prior to the township and the county council agreeing to do it for their areas. So again, we're the leader in that process. Any questions concerning that?
Thank you for that. And I don't think you meant that the current plan was in 2022. That you said the current plan was done in 2022. That can't be right.
Yes, sorry. The current plan was done in 2012, and on the 10-year rotation, we were due to do the master fire plan in 2022, which has been approved. It's just going to be delayed to the first quarter to get the savings of having the county's community risk assessment.
Yeah, and I think that's terrific. And I think Deputy Mayor Danielson may have a comment as well that, the work that's come out of the service delivery review is intended to find those efficiencies and consistency across the county. That's what we heard loud and clear from the public is it has been historically a bit confusing that you can do, whether it's fire or building or bylaw, there's slightly different things in each of the municipalities, and certainly having a fire master plan does a number of things. It shows us that some working silos from the past have mostly been eliminated that allows that consolidated work and also, brings that up to date. And I think the timing is good that because as we know, the pandemic has changed the community dramatically, and doing the CRA now will capture some of those changed risks. So good news all around. Any thoughts from anybody? I probably just said what you were going to say from the county level. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, resolution, please.
Oh,
we didn't talk about any other activities. You had 2 things you wanted to talk to us about.
Yeah, I have one more item. As this will probably be the last opportunity to speak to council with existing council, I want to thank you for your support. One of the major things that council supported this year was the purchase of new extrication equipment. Unfortunately, last week we had a very serious accident up in the Station 60 area. And as a result of the new extrication equipment, I truly believe it made an impact on the person's survival rate of that accident. Our previous equipment was 35 years old, and the functions the new equipment did, I don't think the old equipment would have been capable of doing it. So thank you for the support and for the fire department over the time I've been here, and all the best to everybody going forward.
That's very kind, Chief. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll have a resolution then.
Moved by Counselor Shortreed, second by Counselor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives report FD 2222 regarding monthly activities submitted by Michael French and dated October 13th, 2022.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Enjoy your days.
Finance business is next, so we'll bring in Madam Treasurer. Good morning, Jeannie.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
First up for you is the 2023 budget schedule.
Yes, that's correct. It's following the same suit as has been done in the past few years. Basically just outlining a proposed schedule for our upcoming budget discussions for council and staff, so we all know what deadlines and dates we're looking at. One thing to note is that we've always, council's always provided a target percentage for any tax increase in levy at our hopefully at our projects and priorities meeting. With the changeover of council, we're hoping we'll still get that direction and be able to move ahead from there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council? And I understand as well, although this is because you brought up projects and priorities, that as happened 4 years ago, that there will also be, I'll look to the CIO, the departmental updates. So you'll recall when we first convened 4 years ago at projects and priorities, each department head said, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what my portfolio contains, just as an educational outline for new folks. So that's the plan for projects and priorities?
It definitely is the plan. Yes, we did have a department head meeting this week and we talked about it and so everyone will start working on those as well.
Excellent. Any questions of Jeannie about this proposed schedule for budget? Councillor Berry.
Just in regards to February 6th, and it says first draft budget circulation, is that when council will receive it as well?
Jeannie, that's when you're planning to deliver the binders or have the binders picked up?
That's the intention. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody put all those dates in their calendar. If there's nothing else, we'll have a resolution. Oh, Jen, sorry, go ahead. Councillor Dayu.
Thanks. Yes. Looking at the list of dates and continuing in the vein of this reality that we're going to be in a fresh new term when we start meeting on the budget. I wonder if there is scope and interest in when we get to the right moment, maybe I guess by for the February meetings, perhaps, if now that we've got an asset management plan, would it be possible to have almost a Coles Notes version of the key high ticket items in the asset management plan, and sort of how long in advance we're looking at paying for these, to sort of compare or have in mind when we're looking at reserves and the amount of money that we're anticipating putting in the reserves, how much are left, and therefore how much we want to change or not the levy increase for the coming year. It just might be an interesting moment, especially if there are new members of council, to understand how the reserves and the AMP match up. What do others think about that? And is that possible?
Yeah, I think I'd look to Jeannie and the CIO to determine this. Something right off the bat says that would be a tremendous amount of work. And because I think if we recall having seen the asset management plan ourselves and all these schedules that were attached, it's very detailed. Anyway, I'd look to either of you to talk a little bit about that.
And certainly Jeannie would need to answer that. She'll be the one preparing it. But I guess if I may ask, Councillor Dayu, when would council want to look at that? Because, and the reason I ask that is for timing, because I do know that the timing for Jeannie in this schedule is extremely tight.
Well, it's the sort of thing that I would actually float by staff to see A, if it's even possible, and B, if it is, when, when that timing might be. I recall being a new member of council and looking at the reserves and not having the clearest of ideas about, what they're all meant for. And at that time, we didn't have an up-to-date asset management plan. And I just think it would be, if it's feasible, it could be a good tool for projecting those reserves into the future. Maybe we leave it for the next year. I mean, I float the idea out there.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the idea. I just wonder if it might be too much too fast for new council, and that's not to insult anybody who's going to find themselves at this table. The very first meeting in November is a continuation of business, and there's a lot to catch up on. And I think Jeannie can probably better answer that whole thing, because I don't know that there's actually a direct connection. If this, then that. It's the asset management plan, and look at all the millions and millions and millions of dollars that are going to be required, and then staff are the ones that say this is what we recommend to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be the explanation of, and I do believe as part of the intro at projects and priorities, that Jeannie is going to explain the purpose of reserves, the value of having strong reserves, the reason they're used, how they're used, and why they're used. And that might be where the tie-in is. And Jeannie could maybe answer that now, because we're talking about her like she's not here.
I appreciate all the comments, actually, and I was just going to reiterate. Basically, I was going to say the same thing. What I've done in the past, or what I've kind of traditionally do, is that I do kind of explain this is how the reserves work and how they correlate with things. The asset management plan, though, is not the end. Like, we have to realize it's not the end all. It is something that staff have to look at, because it's in a perfect world situation, your asset management plan. And unfortunately, in most municipalities, we're not in a perfect world financially very often. So it is something that is analyzed. It's correlated in that, you kind of anticipate and know what you need to spend and hopefully set monies aside, but it doesn't line up like verbatim. So it is something that we can look at. I would strongly suggest that new council members actually look at the plan itself. It is an in-depth document, but to bring it down to a summary page, it might be difficult, because it's such a widespread document. So.
I see Deputy Mayor Danielson's hand, and then Councillor Berry's hand.
Well, I was just going to say, even an explanation like that. I mean, the fact that you're planning on explaining the reserves, what they're required for, how they're calculated in a general way, how the asset management plan and the reserves are linked together, rather than, going through it in any great detail, but just a general understanding. I mean, you've just explained it just now fairly reasonably. Maybe it's easy for us because we know, but I think it can be done, in a general explanation, rather than going to any great detailed amount of work right now. There's going to be a lot of catch up for new members of council, and it will take some time to load it all on them at once, and on you. Might be too much to ask right now.
I'm just going to go back to Councillor Dayu for a second. Jen, do you think that has Jeannie kind of answered generally what you're looking for? Is that there will be a robust explanation of the link, of the connection between the two, and how they feed into and speak to each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it behooves me to go back to my copy of the AMP as well, and just remind myself. So in the categories, public works category, how many millions are we talking about? And I think it's worthwhile having at least a conceptual link made between the two, so that all of council is aware that, of the degree to which they work in tandem, and that the reserves are very much are piggy banks towards expenses that aren't going to be in this year's budget, but are going to be in the budget in years to come. So yeah, I think the general description will be essential, and that's already planned, which is great. And then as council members, we can always go back and look at that plan ourselves and remind ourselves of some of the more specific details.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but roughly $7 million in reserves. And yet there's against that, there's probably, $40 million worth of capital expenditures that need to be undertaken over the next number of years. So the importance is in the cyclical use of the reserves year over year against the levy. And that's going to be the new part. I'm going to go to Councillor Barry and back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation, and I do think that, especially with the first budget and priority for the new term, it is worth noting that it is a 4-year term, and maybe having a bit of an idea of, these are going to be maybe our top 5 big projects over 5 years. So when you're saying, when you're putting into the budget process for this year, you're also thinking ahead to the next 3 years of like, if we do this if we don't do this big project this year, and I know we have these conversations, but for a new council, knowing what impacts will be happening throughout the whole term is something to consider, because some of these projects are something that might have to be financed over a longer term as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And remember too, that because the first medium council is a continuation of business, and there are projects that are underway, we will often use reserves and increase the levy a little bit, use the reserves, and take 2 or 3 years to complete a project. So new folks coming in, that will have to be part of the explanation is this has been partially funded, and this little piece, this piece of money that's I'm asking for this year is the other side, the other half of a project that's been approved and maybe about to be is either underway or about to be started. So yeah, there's some complexity there, and I think staff have probably they did it for us 4 years ago, and we'll do it again and make sure that all those connections are made so that it is a little more clear. Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I was just going to make the point that that as well as information, absolutely necessary information for new members of council, it's good for the public's understanding too. For anybody who's tuning in, I can say unequivocally that there is a definite misunderstanding about how our finances work, and and what the reserves are for. So I think even a general explanation would be really helpful for everybody.
Yeah. So I think those who will be back at the table and those who may be watching who are hoping they're going to be at the table, projects and priorities, maybe a longer meeting this year just to provide that catch up for folks and lay down that foundation of knowledge for them. So that's good. Any other questions or comments about the budget schedule considerations? I think we've just had a good conversation that's going to lay out a good plan for a new table. Okay, we'll have a resolution, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives report TT 2022 submitted by Jean Hughes and dated October 13th, 2022 regarding the proposed 2023 budget schedule, and the council concurs with the proposed timeline. And the council establishes a special council meeting of February 15th, 2023 for budget deliberations.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The wage grid revisions for the new positions or the newly created positions, shall I say?
Yes, thank you. Again, it's just a report. We had discussed this in council, and council was aware of the changes. So we have just revised the grid accordingly, and we've attached the appropriate bylaw in the bylaw section for council's review.
Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Okay, resolution, please.
Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Deputy Mayor Jansen. Be it resolved, council accepts Treasury Report TT 2822 submitted by Jean Hughes and dated October 13th, 2022 regarding your vision of the 2022 wage grid, and that council directs a bylaw be tabled for further consideration.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And where are we now? Account summary. Are there any questions from council on the account summary? No, seeing none. We'll have resolutions.
By Deputy Mayor Jansen, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council has reviewed the expenditures incurred as set out in the account summary report TT 2622 in the total amount of $2,421,011.33 and hereby approves payment as same.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you, everyone.
Administration business is next, and believe it or not, we're actually going to have our demonstration of Bang the Table. Finally. So we'll bring in Chad. We've laid him off twice. So is it twice or 3 times? Twice. Yeah. Not yet, nothing personal to Chad. No, not at all. There he is. Almost. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. You can hear me and see me.
We can, and we're very excited that we're finally going to see your demonstrate. Talk to us about the demonstration of Bang the Table.
Yeah, it has taken a little while, so we'll just get into it. I'm going to endeavor to share my screen. And now you're looking at a dashboard.
We are. That's what we can see.
Okay, so that's what you're supposed to be seeing. That is the inside of Bang the Table. So you're familiar with what it looks like on the outside. We are inside. I'm going to show you how projects are created and how analytics work. So what you're looking at is the central dashboard for the website. And this line graph measures traffic in real time. So this is visits day by day. This is the last month. This is the last week. This is for the lifetime of the site. And as you can see here, these areas of heightened activity, those are when we've had active projects. Sometimes we don't have much on the go. Sometimes we have active projects. And I can guarantee that every one of those spikes is a social media post, probably a Facebook post. It's interesting because you can see it's drive traffic in real time to the website when I do post something on social media promoting X, Y, or Z project. So that is the dashboard function. If there are any questions as we go, you can ask questions as we go if you'd like, or wait to the end. It's up to you, Mayor.
Yeah, we'll as we go. If anybody has any questions, just put your hand up and we'll ask away. And you have to remember that you're sitting probably 18 inches from a screen, and for us, it's little tiny words on a screen at the end of the room. So 28 feet away. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll keep that in mind.
Don't ask us to read anything out loud. Because
yeah, fair enough. I got you. So we'll go up to projects. This is a list of the projects we've completed so far. There are 11 in all. Things in gray are things that have been archived. Everything stays on the site. So every project we've done is here somewhere. We can always go back and find that information. Gray is archived, green is active, and orange is draft. This says council's project, if you can't read it. Just a little demo. So this is a blank project. Everything in Bang the Table is very modular. It's very, very, very easy to use. And the GovStack CMS for the new Township website resembles this quite a lot. So it's really, really, really user-friendly, super easy to use. So if we're creating,
I think Councillor Barry has a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barry.
We couldn't read what those projects are. Could you just give, is it every time you do a social media post, or are there other components?
It's like his photo contests and things.
Okay.
Sorry, the projects are projects we've done on Bang the Table. So the zoning bylaw, Chris's Lower Fletcher Lake survey, communications plan, photo contest, that sort of thing.
And that's I think it's if I'm correct, what we're excited about is the opportunity to expand, getting public input on things is ask the public. So I'm sure Chad will say this, the corollary then is people have to sign up because, we're hearing it's election time that, we're not consulted. Well, we're trying to fix that, but it is a two-way street. So if folks want to participate in this potentially robust consultation program, then they have to sign up so they can participate and then, get their information straight back to council. Go ahead, Chad.
And so far we are just over 400 registered users. And I certainly try my best to encourage people to sign up. So the more people that sign up, all the better, obviously. So this is a blank project. So you can add at the top, you can add a banner image if you want. You can upload your own image, or Bang the Table also comes with a subscription to a stock photo service called Unsplash. So there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of stock photos in here that we can add to projects. You can also search by topic. These are organized by photographer here, but you can search by topic. Permalink, you can edit the permalink. So the website will generate a link as it's done here, or I can change it to read whatever I feel like. Description, very descriptive description right here that says this is council's project. This can be thousands of words long. This can be complicated instructions. This can be literally any length. Up here is all formatting stuff, pretty typical. You can change fonts, paragraph styles, et cetera, et cetera. Embed links, embed photos, make a chart, embed video. So we can embed video here if we want to. If you want some greeting from council, or the department head who's doing a project wants to introduce it via video, they have the capability to do that. Project tags, here's all the ones we've used so far. That's for categorizing projects. Project image, again, you can pick a photo that will go in the bed of your text. And this is the really important stuff. These are the tools. This is what Bang the Table is all about. There are 9 tools in all, 3 different environments. Open environment is exactly what it sounds like. Participants can engage with each other. Comments, images, and ideas are visible to the community. So this is wide open. So the first one is forums, which is exactly what it sounds like. You can all be typing to each other in real time, which may sound sort of risky, but you could do a schedule engagement, right? You could do a town hall type thing. We're going to ask questions about X, Y, or Z between 3 and 5 o'clock today. And you make it a conversation as opposed to something that's open on an ongoing basis. Map, like it sounds like, is geographically based. So we can upload a map of anything, let's say a park or a trails network, and ask people where they want a water fountain located, and they can drop pins on the map. Ideas is what I'm using for the photo contest. And it's sort of like, if you think of sticky notes on the wall, like the old school consultation or brainstorming session, it's basically I'm putting my idea on the wall. Others can see it, others can comment, others can like it, which is how we're doing voting for the photo contest. Mixed environment. So participants can see other participants' contributions. However, there is little peer-to-peer interaction. Some data may be visible to the community, while some data is accessible only by the administrator. So for these ones, I can pick what is public and what only I can see. So if you want to do something like a virtual suggestion box, for example, you use guest book to do that. Questions, exactly what it sounds like. Residents can ask questions. Township can respond. Stories, again, exactly what it sounds like. It's residents sharing memories of, whatever lake when they were kids, or whatever sort of thing we want to open up. Newsfeed, also exactly what it sounds like. This is for media attachments, for putting in news articles and videos and all that sort of stuff. Controlled environment, the last one, the one everyone's familiar with, surveys and polls. Participants cannot engage with each other. Data is stored in the background and only accessible by the administrator. Now, the neat thing is, any project, with the exception down here, a project can only have one stories, guest book, or questions tool, but the rest of them you can combine. So I can have one project that has a forum, that has a map, that has a survey, that has a poll, and I can have all those things combined on one project. Are there any questions so far? Should I stop for a minute? Or?
Yeah, anything. So, I mean, my mind is reeling. I mean, the opportunities are endless. And there's a number of even just committee work that I can see reaching out to ask folks for their thoughts. There's a lot of people that have tremendous knowledge in the community, and somebody might write in and say, well, I'm an engineer and I suggest this, or whatever it is. So, yeah, lots of opportunity, but carry on.
And speaking of that, settings. So here, public, most of the projects we've done are open to everybody. You can also do paneled. So you could literally have a panel. You could have a conversation with council, with staff. So the panelists are interacting, but everybody else is just an attendee who is watching. You could also set it up so they can send, questions privately to one of the panelists. And protected, like you were talking about just now, Madam Mayor, that could be used for advisory committees. That could be used for a project targeting a certain neighborhood, a certain lake, a certain road, etc., where only invited people are allowed to participate. Widgets. So this is sort of secondary ancillary information. This would appear on the right-hand side of your project. We typically use who's listening. So you put the department head or staff contact, key dates, when things wrap up, when voting starts, this sort of thing. But you can do all kinds of stuff, frequently asked questions, pictures. I can put a poll over at the side. I can have news stories feeding down. I can embed video, documents, et cetera, all part of the same project. Now let's say your project is done. And again, it's keeping track of data in real time all the time. So a number of ways we can analyze information. This says tool reports, text analysis, survey analysis, text analysis. If you were doing a survey where there's lots of paragraph answers, you'd be using this tool here. I'm going to use survey analysis. I'm going to find my own project from earlier this year. Been over for a long time, obviously, communications plan, survey, but there's all the information. And what's neat too, while the project is ongoing, I can check in and see how people are responding. So this is not just available when it's over. I can go in anytime and look at how people are answering questions. When the project is over, I literally hit this button, download report, and it creates a report all on its own, which I can then attach to a council report. That's how easy it is to use. And the last thing I really wanted to highlight was newsletters. We've done none, obviously, so far. This is the thing in my mind that I would replace news and notices with eventually. So it would show up as an email from the township, whatever your subject matter is. You can dress it up if you want. Put some photos in there. I think Sean used that for his bylaw updates. There's just a photo that's in here. You can put whatever you want there. Here's the framework for the newsletter. Put your content in, whatever the news of the day is. And you would also, again, in my mind, drive people back to whatever is on this website with whatever the news of the day is. By the way, take part in X, Y, or Z poll. And so I think that is the majority of what I wanted to highlight. A lot of this stuff is fairly boring technical stuff. Appearance is how you edit the home page. There's a variety of styles. And again, when you want to edit things, you just pull things out, put things in. It's very modular and it's very, very easy to use. And that's mostly the things that I wanted to highlight. I don't know if there are questions.
Any questions from members of council? I see it's Jen. Jen's turned into a little tiny pea head up there, but I think her hand's up. Councillor Dayu.
Thanks, Chad. It really is very exciting to remind ourselves of just how powerful a tool this can be for our community. I guess the next really big question is, how do we as council get started in engaging with this, with the sorts of files and projects and priorities that we've got, ahead of us? What will the mechanics of that be? And I guess it's a question that I put to you, Madam Mayor, and the CAO. But the desire to start engaging on council business in the appropriate ways is very strong. So what's our next step to become involved?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because I've jotted down 3 little things here, and one of them is, in reality, there needs to be a discussion wherein council decides the parameters. I mean, people are elected to represent the public. So you can't use a tool like this to ask everybody what color fire truck they want. That's not the purpose of this. And you also have to remember that if there are, 6,800 people eligible to vote and we only have 433 people signed up, then any surveys or polls are like, they're hardly relevant. So again, there's that two-way street. So there's a bigger conversation to be had in terms of what it is council wants to put to the public, whether it is just contests or announcements of events, newsletters, letting people know what's coming up on an agenda or whatever those things are. Or if council wants to use the tool to say, we're going to replace this, the whole recreation unit at Alvin Johnson Park. And then I don't know, I agree with you. I don't know what the question would be, but there's a lot of serious conversation and thought that has to go into that, because you also don't want to destroy the appropriate counselor taxpayer relationship. That's how the democratic process works, is taxpayers have ward representatives and they should be phoning them to say, hey, I want to talk about this issue or that project. So how do you use this tool to marry that into a more, contemporary process without watering down the purpose of the existence of a council table? So I know that's a bit of a dramatic, polarized idea, but so going forward, the, new council will have to have a conversation about what it is they're looking for. You simply cannot ask the public their opinion on every single thing through a survey, because then if you don't do what people want from the survey, they'll be mad at you. But if you don't have, everybody answering the questions, then it's really just dipping your toe in the water, just sort of taking the temperature. So there's going to have to be some conversation going forward to figure out how to get more folks to sign up and what it is they're going to participate on. That will be for another group of people to do. I'm going to go to Councillor Barry and then back to you, Councillor Dayu.
One of my questions was in regards to public participation and engagement, signing up for the Bang the Table from the viewer's point of view or the taxpayer's point of view. Is it a case of they sign up for everything, or can they be specific? Like, I don't want to take part in your photo contest, but I would like the news and surveys,
Or other way around.
or other way around. Just wondering, just because some people don't want to be inundated with things every month or every week.
Or they have no
But-
interest. They have no interest in planning applications, but they want to know about water trails.
Exactly.
Yeah. Chad, can you speak to that? How, is there
Yeah.
a way to target?
Yeah, so through the mayor, registering for the site just gives you access to the site. That's it. You can get into the site. You choose what you want to participate in. You don't have to participate in anything. You can just register for the site. If and when the newsletter function replaces news and notices, and IT will have to be involved in that, that would also be something that you sign up for voluntarily, and there would be a communication process around that. Obviously, letting current subscribers of news and notices know that the function is going to change a bit. But registering for the website just allows you to access the website.
And then it's the portal through which you would participate. There would be an invitation to, if you want to have a say on this thing, you go into Let's Connect. And
That's right. But you would basically be signing up for a list. Do you want to receive emails? Do you want to receive news from the township?
yeah, and Lake of Bay is when they've had this a little bit longer, and lots of municipalities have, and it's interesting to go and see how other municipalities have used this portal. Every municipality calls it something different, but Lake of Bay certainly used it very comprehensively around their public consultation around short-term rentals. And they asked, but a lot of work goes in the front end of that to ask the right questions that provide the right information to feed into the process. So you can't just say, what color, like I say, what color fire truck do you want? Like you also can't say, what do you think of line 37 in the budget? So you have to be it has to be crafted carefully. But back to you, Jennifer Dayu.
Thanks. Yeah. So I guess a couple of thoughts on a couple of different points now. One, regarding that example from Lake Bays, I wonder, is there scope, is there appetite for Chad at the appropriate moment to come back to council with a little bit of a report with 3 or 4 interesting ways that other townships have used these sites with links to perhaps some of those sites, so that we can start to flesh in the practicalities of that, of what it could look like for us. Any red flags that we might see that we wouldn't want to go in, go towards, but basically get a fleshed out sense of what's possible. And just the second thing, so that I can then put myself on mute again, Mayor Moffat, regarding your comment about sample sizes, I am a little bit less worried about that, because I do see the Let's Connect being very much a tool for engagement for the township, not just for the people who have already signed up. So if people wish to participate in a survey, we would be spreading the news of the survey far and wide, well outside of the Let's Connect audience, and then would direct people to Let's Connect to be, as the tool for gathering that information, just as in the past, we've directed people to the way that they could input their survey results, in the previous ways. But I guess then, Chad, for you, the question that is attached to that, and I have an inkling of a memory of when we spoke about it before. Say someone wants to participate in a survey about the Dorset Rec Centre, which I know we've done in the past, but they don't want to sign up to Let's Connect as a full-time registered user. Can they connect anonymously, or would they have to register themselves formally and officially? And I know we talked about this in years past, so maybe it's just a reminder.
Yeah, so when through the mayor, when the website was set up, and it was a decision of council, that there would be two questions that would be asked, which was your age demographic, your age range, and your relationship to the township, whether you are seasonal or year-round or a visitor. I've only had two people ask me why that is, and who seemed uncomfortable about it. And as a reminder, that was to gather better data, basically, right? Because we are trying to gather data. And so that's why that was instituted. So at this point in time, to participate in anything on the site, you have to register, which means you have to answer those two questions, and you have to create a username and provide an email address. We could take all of that away. It could be completely open to anybody. I can change any of those things at any time.
Chad, could you take yourself off? Could you end share screen so that you guys aren't little tiny pea heads? Oh, there you are. Oh, look.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and I think to Councillor Dayu's question, when we talked about getting this platform, we talked a little bit about that, and the idea of having people required to sign up. Nobody has access to that except the communications coordinator, but only in time, and only if needed, if there's any violations or trolls or that kind of thing, because you kind of have to know who people are. But if you sign up and call yourself Fiddlesticks 123, and that no one knows who that is, so you can have a username, and so I think, Chad, you can turn on or off those names. So it might just say, I love yellow fire trucks, but it doesn't say who said that. But if somebody wrote something completely inappropriate, then Chad needs to know that in order to, quite honestly, ban people if they're gonna abuse the platform. So I think those securities are built in, and I know people do have concern that their questions are being asked or their information is being sought for nefarious reasons, and it's not. It absolutely isn't. I think we learned that in the very beginning. I think I'm going to go to Lisa. I think she had her hand up first, and then back to Deputy Mayor.
Just a quick question for the viewer that's participating. They have an account signed up. Like when I'm in there right now, you just see the two things. You see the information about the municipal election and the photo contest. If there's surveys in that have been done previously, is the communication coordinator the only person that sees those? Like, you can't go back and see previous surveys?
Chad?
Yeah, through the mayor. So those things are currently archived, so they're not publicly available. The things that you see are the things that are current are relevant right now and people can participate in right now. I could keep a publicly available archive of projects we've done if that's something that's desirable.
I think I've seen them on a couple of other sites where it'll have the project, but it'll say this project is closed. So you could go back and look at the results if you wanted to, but you can't participate anymore. But so this is exactly what, the new council is going to have to flesh out is what do you want to use it for? And, within what boundaries and parameters. On the one hand, you can say it's endless, but it shouldn't be endless because you don't want to take away from the on the ground roles of members of council. But, and so to Councillor Dayu's question, well, it won't be this group of people, but that is something Chad could bring back to the new council, maybe in the new year or the spring, is to say, because again, we had a conversation about budget considerations. There's a lot of information going to come at a bunch of, a new group of people. Give folks some time to get their feet wet and then look at some of those examples of what other communities are using it for and help formulate some of those ideas. So I think if council supports that Chad could do that for the new council and maybe the new year. Yes. Go ahead.
So is this accessible on our website at the moment or not to the public? My apologies. Is this accessible now? Like, can someone go onto our website and find it? Because are
you not all signed up? Goodness, I'm signed up.
Okay, I confess. But no, I'm just looking for it on the website right now to see, okay, so how does somebody access? How does somebody find out about it? How do they actually sign up? If I wanted to sign up, like I just went to the website now and I can't see readily where I would find it.
Yeah, and through the mayor, I don't think there is a direct link on the current website. We can put one in there, or a new website hopefully will be under construction shortly, and build it as more of a prevalent part of that website.
Because if we want people to sign up, I mean, they've got to be able to easily access it and find a way to do that.
Yeah, so you type in Let's Connect Algonquin Highlands and it pops up as a whole separate portal. And on social media, Chad does provide the link to that. So, if you want to participate in the fall photo contest, which is it still open?
It closes tomorrow at 4 p.m., Madam Mayor.
Then, so on social media, you would have, like, if you want to enter the contest, you click on it, it takes you to Let's Connect and you sign up and submit your picture.
Okay, the point though that I was trying to make is if you had no idea about this, but you'd heard that there was a Let's Connect or Bang the Table, the first place a person is going to go is the website, and it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of why I was asking the question. There's got to be something on our website that will direct them.
Yeah, I'm sure in the short term there can be a link about that. And Chad's right, we're about to embark on the development of a whole new website. I'm assuming it'll definitely be there. I guess it depends on how long the new website development will take. And I guess it is worth putting it on there now because that's where people are going. Our website's a bit sorry, but we'll get there.
The other question that I had was with respect to not identifying yourself. I have a bit of an issue with that. Now, that may be a discussion that needs to be had by the new council. But if you're a taxpayer, you're a legitimate taxpayer, you have a concern about something that's going on, why would we have somebody with an anonymous name who is, we don't know who it is and they can make whatever comment they want, and you don't know how it's relative. If somebody is concerned about putting their name on a public portal, that's when they can pick up the phone and talk to their individual member of council, have a private conversation about whatever their concern is. But I just have some issues with that.
I think that's the way it's set up because that's what council supported when we decided to go in this direction to have this platform. But that was quite some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that was all part of that. So I see your hand, Jen. I'm going to go to Councillor Barry first.
Sorry, just with your first question, if you do go into the Algonquin Highlands website and do a search for Let's Connect, it takes you to Chad's post from January 5th, which is us launching the software. And through that, there is a link. So it's not something you go to, but if you do search for Let's Connect, it does come up with a link to subscribe.
Well, a button's easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just stick a button on the current website because we can't complain that people aren't signing up when we're making it so hard for them to sign up. So let's make it a little bit easier. I think everybody would concur that would be the easiest thing to do right away. Councillor Dayu.
And please confirm if I'm correct or incorrect here, Chad, but I also think that when people are engaging in the public facing part, like if they want to engage in the photo contest, you can have Fiddlesticks 221. I've seen people with some interesting handles that they've used for that photo contest. Some beautiful photos there, by the way. I was just refreshing it, and really gorgeous photos. But I suspect, and Chad, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but if we have a formal survey that's going out with data collection that will inform an important council decision on a thing, then all of the survey participants will be kept confidential on the inside. You wouldn't normally get a list of all the participating individuals in a survey on the public facing side of these sorts of tools. So inwardly, we would know exactly who has responded, but outwardly, it wouldn't look like, well, we wouldn't be sharing that confidential information in public. Would that be correct, Chad?
Through the mayor, what we have are email addresses and usernames, right? So if your email address uses your actual name, then we know your name. If your email address is whatever, then that's all we have. So there is not deep personal information housed on that website.
Okay.
But I think, Chad, can you clarify that it's also important that people know that when you say we know your email address, it's not council and it's not staff, it's you.
Yeah, sorry.
And we're still beholden to privacy information regulations, MFIPA regulations. And so the we is not the entire corporation, including members of council. It's a security, it's a backdoor security measure to control what has become, as we all know, an era of some inappropriate social discourse. So it's not to track Mr. Fiddlesticks 123 and see what he or she does. It's just to know that they can't just be out there saying whatever they want all over everything without any accountability. So accountability goes both ways. People want accountability from council, and I think council is owed some accountability for public input. So again, it's designed to be a respectful two-way street. So.
And through the mayor, my apologies. Yes, I did not mean we. I meant myself. Yes, I can see the email addresses.
Yeah. Okay. So with an eye to the time, does anybody have any further questions of Chad on the platform? It's really exciting, and I think there's some really interesting conversations ahead with the new council to determine how this will be used, and it's endless. I think there's definitely a role for some committee work too. We've got a report coming later about a refresh of the cultural plan, and we did talk about the role that the communications coordinator and his various tools would play in something like that. So we do have other committees, environment and stewardship, when it gets running, I think there's opportunity there. And anyway, there's opportunity all over. Anything further? Do we have a resolution for that one? No. All right, Chad, thank you for this this conversation, and
thank you.
We'll see how we go. Right, next up, I think you're still here.
I'm still here.
We have the agreement with GHD Digital for the website. So take it away.
Yep. So this is coming back from last month, and this is for the signing of the actual contract with GHD, and after which work will begin on a new website for the township.
Any questions? We've already approved this. Is just coming back again. Councillor Dayu.
Just a quick refresh, if that's okay, Chad. What is the plan for getting council's input into, the visuals, the priorities, etc., for the new site?
Through through the mayor, I mean, that can be spoken about. I've never been through this exact process before. I know there'll be a series of meetings between GHD and the township, so that, you know, the township could be members of the council potentially at some points in time. I suppose it'll certainly be myself, Mr. March, the CEO will be invited to any and all meetings. You know, I'm not sure exactly what that process looks like, because I've never been through this process myself.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that we want a good looking, functional and efficient website that provides information to the public. And I mean, what it looks like, or whether it's a picture of a heron or a loon, I think is far beyond the pay grade of council. So are you able to clarify further what it is? Like, you're just looking for like the overarching conversation, or what were you thinking of there?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of direction setting. When I look at various municipal websites across Ontario or further beyond, you can see how each one has its individual tone, where it sets its own priorities. Some might focus on, you know, here have a page on here are some of the, you know, our strategic goals and visions working ahead, or there, you know, there's a lot that goes into design that speaks to the character of a place and the sort of information that we want to prioritize getting out there. So I just wonder, certainly far above the loon, the squirrel photo selection, it would just be that direction setting piece. Are there things that we'd particularly like to see integrated into the new website?
Yeah, and I in response to that question, I wonder if that's something that, I don't know where to put that, because on the one hand, I think it might be better if that direction comes from the sitting council that has, you know, experience with the projects and the priorities that have been set each year through projects and priorities and the you know, the vision statements. We're running out of time.
We are.
I don't know what to do with that. Like, Chad, what's your idea? The idea has been that it's more of an administrative process.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I have a lot of ideas based on looking at other municipal websites that I think are good websites. I have lots of ideas in my own mind. But yeah, if there's going to be a working group or something like that, I suppose that could be established. So far, it's been myself, Mr. March, and our rep from GHD sort of talking about these things, and obviously the work will begin in earnest after the signing of the contract. In terms of council inputs, it's up to council really how you want that to look.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say, from my perspective, I mean, I'm only here for a few more weeks. I personally wouldn't have any interest in that. I think that this is a portal to provide information to the community. You know, if to me, council might weigh in on what it wants under the council section, but again, that's just me, and I won't be here. So I other than setting, to Jen's point, that sort of what do you want to convey? You know, does council want to have its vision statement on there? Sure, that would seem important. But beyond that, you know, what it looks like, I wouldn't have any interest in, and it depends on what council wants to do. So we could maybe give that some thought. I mean, we do have a special meeting coming up. We could tack that on, or we can't. We can't tack anything on, can we?
We just have to advertise properly. The advertisement scheduled to go in next week's paper, so we can.
But there's time. Well, then Jen, that would allow council to sort of ruminate on what it is they might be looking for to provide some of that overarching direction, and then leave it with staff. My concern would be getting into the weeds, getting beyond the overarching sort of philosophy and getting into the design. It's not getting into the design of a website isn't the role of council. Setting the direction of a website or what you want it to contain is not outside the bounds.
I guess one of my questions first would be, what's the timeline within which you see this project taking?
Through the mayor. So according to the contract, it is 14 to 20 weeks is the timeline.
14 to 20 weeks.
Until it's live and active. So 4 to 5 months, it'll be early 2023. It is a complicated process, obviously, right? The first thing they'll do is gravitate the existing content we want to keep from the current website. You know, lots of transfer of data. Then there'll be all kinds of meetings about about layout and how things are divided, and there are going to be some new sections probably. So it will take a long time. And certainly department heads will be involved in that in terms of content from their own sections, what they feel is prudent.
But there, if I think back, there were some questions about whether or not, the two museums have separate websites. So one of the questions was, should they be brought in? Council needs to provide direction on those kinds of things. So there are a couple of those things that are left undecided that probably should be decided.
I was just going to say that given the time frame, there is a point, say mid-project, that you could come to council and say, kind of, here's where we're at. Is there anything we're missing? I agree that I don't think council should be getting into the weeds too far with it, but there might be some ideas that they have about, a section or certain information that they want included from council's perspective. I think it might be a good idea for us to have a discussion if we can add it on to our special meeting. And that can be, it can be augmented with, a bit of a discussion with the future council at some point during the project. Not saying that, every step that you take that council needs to be involved, but to have, allow at least a general discussion or a viewing of how things are looking at a certain point. I know that we did that at the county at one point. There was work being done on the website, and it came to county to say, so, well, here's how it's looking. Which gives an opportunity for some comment without getting into the weeds.
Yeah, I mean, members of municipal council should not be involved in the designing of a website, but to Jen's point, there is that upper sort of overarching role of, the general direction of where it's going. And we do need to answer those questions. We do need to, the council will have to provide the direction about whether or not the two museum websites shall be brought inside or left externally. So there were a number of those questions that were part of your communications plan, and I think those are definitely worth discussing. And to Jen's point, that sort of, what's the philosophical point of the website? I mean, it is a corporate information site. It's not about, lost kittens. And I know that's not what you're saying, Councillor Dayu. I know that's not what you're saying, but if we can have that overarching conversation, if we can add that on to the next meeting, we can answer some of those questions. And I think you make a good point that somewhere through the project, it can be, shown to council going forward, and they might have ideas of what's missing, or
through the mayor, if I may, once we have a functioning prototype, I think that's an appropriate thing to do, right? That's a good idea. I bring it, I say, here's what we have so far, and get feedback, and then go away again.
Okay, so let's tack that on the special meeting. I say that a bit cavalierly. Tacking it on is not the appropriate term, but and Chad, if you can prepare us for those questions that you had asked us in the beginning that remain unanswered, because council will have to make those decisions.
Yep, we'll do.
Anything further on Township website? Okay, we have a resolution, please.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives report COM 522 submitted by Chad Ingram, dated October 13th, 2022, and directs the bylaw be brought forward to authorize the mayor clerk to sign the agreement between the Township of Algonquin Highlands and GHD Digital for the implementation and hosting of a new corporate website.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. It is 12 noon. Do we know if our noonday repast has arrived? It has. Okay, then we are going to break for lunch. Half an hour. Half an hour, Jen? Councillor Dayu, sorry. Then we will reconvene with you, item C, Mr. Ingram,
Thank you.
at 12:30. Thanks.
Okay, see you then.
Is that the thumbs up? Yes, okay, great. We are back live and reconvened at social media guidelines for elected officials, and Mr. Ingram is back with us. Sounds like a radio show.
This is coming back again from last month. Council had requested, if you recall, the creation of a document that would provide some guidelines for the use of social media by members of council. And I've created a draft document which is before you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of spells out what we were looking for. It's just some general guidelines and looking for thoughts from council on giving that direction.
I took a really close look at this last night. I mean, now seems to be an optimum time for me to be reading such a thing. But yeah, I thought it was excellent. Good work.
Anybody else? Councillor Dayu?
Thanks. Yeah, it's great. It's clear. I had two questions in my mind, though, as I was reading through it. And I don't know if this is a moment to create clarity or to refer to them or not, given just how council works and what the various roles are within council. So, for example, I know that one of the parts of the mayoral job description is to be the public spokesperson for the township. So is there a space or a need in this document to refer to that if there's, and I don't know, say we're going to announce a new thing, something big, a big change, and the plan is that the mayor is going to make that announcement and press will be invited. Is it important that we remind council that maybe it's not an individual thing to celebrate before the mayor takes the lead on that, or something that has to do with the fact that the mayor is the official public facing spokesperson for the township. So that was one. And the second one was something that we talked about on and off throughout the last 4 years, and I know long before I ever joined council, which is the importance for councillors to not make up their mind on a topic before they've sat at the council table and they've listened to all the perspectives from all the councillors. So not to go in, with a really concrete, I must have it this way approach, and where that philosophy or ethos sits within our social media protocol, if at all.
Yeah, I would wonder if those, and I can't recall, but I think the first one is outlined the roles of, I think the mayor, CAO, a treasurer, and that kind of thing, clerk are in the councillor guide.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's, excuse me. We spoke earlier about trying to lay down some foundation, some groundwork, because there's a lot to catch up on. And you just look at the number of documents, most of which, not all of them, are required for council to understand and abide by. It's a lot to understand and get to. And I think the role of the mayor as a spokesperson is in that role delineation in the guide, right? Okay. And sorry, what was your second question?
Oh, just the general principle of councillors not coming to the chambers with a very fixed decision in mind when we're trying to listen to all sides.
Right, and I do see your hand, but to go on their social media page and say, I'm going into tomorrow's meeting voting no, like that's not. you're not supposed
Exactly.
to do that. Yeah,
Exactly.
I would hope that's part of the training. I mean, I think the clerk provides some training and that may be part of the, looking at both the clerk and the CAO for that. There also is, new counselors can be invited to take the AMO training for new counselors. That's a really good put on by, I think, Nigel Belchamber and Fred Dean. So I think, I'm not sure it lives in the social media policy or the guidelines for elected officials, but it is in there somewhere. I'm looking at the clerk and the CAO.
No, I was just going to say that to the second part of your question, I think that's part of the council training as a whole, that, you know, that you need to wait until you're at the council table to hear all perspectives and all information. You shouldn't be going in there guns blazing, having had made a decision. I do think, though, that in the lead in to this, that there might be a place for a reminder that the mayor is the official spokesperson for the municipality. You know, when they're thinking about making posts on social media, that's something that should be top of mind.
So then there's also the, differentiation between official spokesperson for certain purposes versus a member of council reporting back to their constituents. So
absolutely.
And there's a big difference. And that's what I'm, really hopeful for is that renewed personal counselor constituent relationship going forward. So what does council want to do with that? Do you want to add that in here or leave it in the other documents? It's up to council what you want to do. Councilor Barry.
I think either way, it's captured in knowing the relevant policies. And it's not captured if it's not itemized. So I mean, either way, I think it's whether or not it's included as far as the mayor being the spokesmodel. I do think that that's sort of common sense, but maybe one shouldn't assume that.
I would think that once you're told that the mayor is the spokesperson in accordance with the municipal act, that's the end of the conversation. Yeah. Really, that's what it should be. I mean, I'm happy to leave it. I think it's contained in the other documents. But I think it's one of many important things to be relayed to a new council for sure. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything further on this? We'll just keep adding to the documentation that helps everybody stay in their track. We'll have a resolution then.
By Deputy Mayor Jansen, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved, council receives report COM 622 submitted by Chad Ingram dated October 13th, 2022 and approves the social media guidelines for elected officials.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, council.
Integrity Commissioner Services report is next from the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up to the September 15th meeting when we received a letter from our Integrity Commissioner advising that he was retiring from those services and was intending to delegate his authority to, excuse me, Aird and Bearless Law Firm for the remainder of his contract, which ends this year, December 31st, 2022. Since that meeting, we received the official delegation, and it's been determined that we do require a separate contract with Aird and Bearless Law Firm to finish out the remainder of Mr. Elston's contract. So staff is just seeking council's approval for the clerk to execute a retainer contract to the end of the year.
Questions, comments from council? Okay, go ahead.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Jansen, be it resolved, council acknowledge and accepts Aird Elston's delegation of authority for Integrity Commissioner Services and appoints the law firm of Aird and Bearless LLP for the Integrity Commissioner for the remainder of the term ending December 31st, 2022, and that council rescinds its motion of September 15th, 2022, and authorizes the clerk to sign a new contract with Aird and Bearless LLP for the purposes of retaining Integrity Commissioner Services ending December 31st, 2022.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There's a set of minutes from the Stanhope Museum from September. Any questions from council on that? Go ahead.
By Deputy Mayor Danson, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved that council receives the Stanhope Heritage Museum meeting minutes dated September 19th, 2022.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. The next two items they're in the bylaw section, as has been noted, but just a word to congratulate both Sarah and Lana on their promotions into the big leagues. So a little bit of a job change there. So congratulations. Sarah is in the room with us and Lana is not. So we're looking at her right here. So we'll see those in the bylaw section. The next one up is, excuse me, is the shoreline preservation bylaw. This is the next step in the business council has approved. It's also in the bylaw section, but I just wanted to make sure that if there was anything else anybody wanted to say, we know this bylaw has been a bit contentious. There's a lot of interest for a long time. So if you have anything to say it now. Okay, so we will see that down at the bottom in bylaws. The next one, verbal update. I asked to have this added, and I'm going to ask the CAO to speak to a little bit. We had a conversation, and I said to the CAO, we've been really nice. I'm tired of being nice. And she said, well, it's just open the library. So it's about a door. So I wanted council to make a decision about a door. So I'm hoping that we just get a door and open the library. But I think you've got some caveats to say around that. Well, around accessibility, right?
Yeah, it is. And we know that, with the updates that I've provided council, we've had a ton of supply chain issues, and we continue to not have the door that has the accessibility, bar and everything on it, which is why we started the renovations in the first place. So there is a temporary door on there. I'm aware this week that the side light that was required to be in the door in order to even use the door has now been installed. It's been against us from the beginning. I think even the TSSA who has to inspect the lift, they've been on strike. So it's just been one thing after another. Now I understand that's also being resolved. So hopefully those inspections will get rolled out quickly. But certainly if we are ready, if with what we have in place, it's not final. We can open the library. We'd have to give library staff some time to get their staff in there and get organized, of course, with the understanding that it will need to be closed again once in order for us to finish what we need to finish.
Couple of questions for how much time would it need to be once the right door comes in? How much time would we need to close it for? Like, are we just talking about a couple of days? Are we going to have to get into another extended period?
I don't know the answer to that exactly. I'm hopeful it's only a couple of days. We will absolutely work that through with the contractor, and we won't close it until we have a timeline.
Just as a follow-up, please open the library.
Yeah, I mean,
under any and all existing circumstances, please. Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly the accessibility issue is fully appreciated. We undertook this entire project to provide a capital A accessible facility. It is currently not small a accessible to anyone. So at least if we just get it open now and existing users can go back to using the library because they love it and they want it. And the capital A accessibility will come when the supply chain allows the door to come and the TSSA. So we just need to make it clear that in spite of the project having been to provide capital A accessibility to those who need it, that is not available as yet. But I think I'm seeing concurrence for opening the library. Jen's just saying, yeah, just open the library. Yeah. Okay. Is there a resolution around that? Oh, well, we're just going to open the library then. And so that's just direction. Thank you for that support. I didn't think it would be a tough sell by any stretch. Planning business is next, so we can bring in the planner. Is that what the ACC means at the end of these? What does that mean? Oh, they've been converted to accessible. Excellent. And Mr. O'Callaghan, welcome back.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
The first item is not yours. I took the notes for the refresh group that Councillor Dayu and I participated in. The cultural committee has had some challenges because the document is unwieldy and virtually unachievable in its current format. So a couple of brainstorming sessions, and the report is before you, represents the conversation of the committee, and just looking for council support to allow for the group to continue the work, definitely with some things council has talked about to get done as well. And the item number 2 was really important, that to note that there is a tremendous amount of culturally relevant work that has been done just as a matter of course for us in this township. So I think that's notable. So it didn't necessarily take a cultural committee and a big report or a plan to achieve these things. We have that entrenched a lot, but there's some opportunity to move ahead. So just looking for council support for that group to continue its work, and then and make way for a renewed cultural committee. Some members didn't come back after the pandemic, so there technically isn't really a cultural committee. There isn't really enough people, so that will go out. There's a call going out for committee members for right across the board. Councillor Deputy Mayor Danielson.
A couple of questions with respect to the working group's goals. I just wonder how you see the, you talk about working with the communications coordinator and you know, to entrench more cultural related information onto our social media and websites. I just wonder the extent to which you see the working group going with that, as well as working with, say, you know, all 3 of the goals are, you know, I'm wondering how you see that progressing and working. Is the cultural committee going to make recommendations to council about things that, and council would say, go forth and do it, or yes, the communications coordinator shall do it, or are they going to work directly with the communications coordinator, or say the, you know, public works manager about? I just kind of want to get a little, you know, idea about how you see those working relationships.
I think you'll see that in the after number 3, and it says to better frame the 3 goals. The group wants to continue reimagining, and I think that was Councillor Dayu's terminology, reimagine the plan, and everybody agrees to simplify the mandate. So because it's the end of a term, the group is just asking for permission to keep talking, but not an endless conversation, but to do exactly that. It's to reframe it and say, how can those 3 goals be operationalized? One of the things that this cultural committee has never done, well, there's a number of things, is it's never been invited to participate in anything. And so other cultural committees and other communities, a council and staff are familiar with the plan and then would say, hey, that's something that we should give to the cultural committee. Now, there's a couple of things have been done, the volunteer recognition, but not significant things. And Councillor Dayu had a really good idea about telling people stories like at boat launches. So there's a whole plan to do boat launches. Maybe it won't come to fruition. Maybe it is a bit pie in the sky, but if there's an interest in telling the stories of our community, you know, our seasonal folks have a ton of stories, a ton of family histories. As an example, wouldn't it be great to, when you go to any one of our boat launches, that there is some sort of signage that says you're standing at the whatever, and its First Nations name is, and it's been a cottage destination for, like, just tell the story of that place. And I don't know, Jen, do you want to expand on that? That was your idea, which is a great idea.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. The only thing I would add, as per that part of our conversation, is looking for ways of taking culture and celebration of history to the places where people are. So, you know, our communities are spread out across dozens of lakes, but a lot of our cultural assets are in our museums, etc. So it's about re-envisioning how we can remind people of our beautiful heritage outwards where they are. It's that kind of thing. And then just, yeah, taking a rather unwieldy cultural plan and trying to extract the essence of it so that there's something manageable that has a home, rather than a series of lofty, wonderful goals, but maybe don't have as much of a practical footing.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that one of the things that I had hoped to see, and there's a bit of conflict in my mind about this, because we do have 3 distinct communities within Algonquin Highlands. And in some ways, we want to be able to celebrate and maintain certain aspects of those, 3 communities or more. In fact, if you go back in history, there are more smaller communities that are part. At the same time, I felt within me a wish that when we started the cultural plan in the first place, to somehow bring us closer together as a single unity at the same time. And I would like the committee to in their continuing work, to keep that sort of in mind, how to bring us together as one unit, as opposed to 3 warring, going back to the Stanhope saying, why is Dorset getting that? Or Oxton saying we're left out in the cold, or Dorset saying, well, everything's in Stanhope. And yeah, I would like us to try and resolve that. I know that that's a long-standing thing that needs, doesn't happen overnight. And I think that we've made a lot of progress in that regard, but I think it's maybe part of the cultural committee's role to keep that in mind and think of ways that we can do that.
Yeah, I think you can, and just for everyone's, I'm not running again, but I have my application filled in as a citizen to be on this committee. So I think you can do that individually and collectively. So from what you just said, I see that you can celebrate the individual communities. And one of the things we talked about was, for example, and this is what I was going to say, is we can't do anything about, no, it's the wrong example. Take the rink example. So we support rinks and we put money into rinks for people, but there's entire histories behind rinks. So you wouldn't put pictures of people from Oxton skating on the rink in Dorset, because Dorset does have its individual wonderful history. So so people are this is back to Jen's point about take the culture to where the people are, celebrate the culture where the people are, and use what we already have and know to facilitate that. So it's going to have to require partners and multi-layers and, probably some expenditures. But if council is going to continue to invest in things like rinks, then the natural extension is to continue to invest in ways to celebrate the ways and people use the rinks. And the Dorset Museum has great pictures of the old hockey teams. Whoever sees them, you might see them on their Facebook page, or if you go in the museum, same with the Stanhope Museum, very distinct culture, very different from Dorset, different from Oxton. So it's about bringing, if people can't get to the heritage, take the heritage to the people and finding those ways. But a project like the boat launch, that's a community-wide one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can, to your point, I think you can approach it both ways. You can, so the committee the direction from council could be to look for ways to do both of that. Celebrate the individual heritage and culture, and then look for ways to bridge between the communities in a sort of cross-pollination.
Just to add to that, I would hope that through that process, we can also bridge the gap between what is seen as a gap still between seasonal and permanent residents. That's another aspect of a gap that we've got, that I think that maybe the cultural committee could think about that as well, and how that.
There has been an exhibit in the Stanhope Museum for years about the impact of seasonal residents and the whole history of cottaging, and like some of that work has already been done. So, and that's where I think Bang the Table could be used. Let's Connect is to reach out, and it has to be a multi-pronged approach to address all those things. And that's what this group wants to do, is continue to refine it and piece it out. So what it was is a group of people with a plan who had no authority to actually do anything, but had all these lofty goals and outcomes that it could never achieve, because you weren't going to have a separate group of people tell existing committees what to do. So now the idea is now there's an economic development person back at the county, make sure the person at the county knows that the cultural plan in Algonquin Highlands is working toward, and make sure he knows those goals And then this group can say, we've given it to somebody else. So there's a whole education process too, but reimagining the plan, making sure council understands the plan, the purpose of the plan, make sure staff understand the plan, a mechanism for how, when something comes up, that it's a department head says, hey, I wonder what the cultural people think of that. We don't know what those answers are yet. It's about finding them, finding the way to those things. I want Jen to weigh in eventually, but I'll go to Lisa Mary.
You just said that now that we have an economic development person in place and we also have Chad in place, is the idea that the committee or subcommittee working group would still bring projects, ideas, concepts forward through minutes, and then council would then direct that to the channels that you're talking about? It wouldn't be the working group that would send things to
So the working group is meant to reframe the plan so that a new cultural committee of more than 5 people can be reconvened to then undertake it. So instead of a cultural committee that nobody talks to, trying to find a way to get input into an official plan, there's going to have to be some responsibility for a better working relationship between this sort of isolated committee and the corporation to make sure that that's considered on an ongoing basis. So would they come back and say, and have minutes and recommendations? I would assume so, but I couldn't tell you right now what they are because we're only partway there. Jen, do you want to weigh in on that?
No, I think the point is well made that this is a work in progress. The idea is that we don't have the answers yet, but we're trying to figure it out. And I really take on board very, very strongly Liz's comments about the overarching objectives that the committee can have and should have. So that's a great reminder. And now we're getting a tiny bit into the conversation on the last time we met in the working group, but I've really started to reconceptualize how I understand community in our township. And I said this at the committee. We've so frequently spoken of 3 distinct communities in Algonquin Highlands, and I'm starting to wonder if that's maybe less the case, and that what we really have are 3 distinct settlement areas where we have in our OP, we've said, these are our settlement areas where a lot of our resources are going to be funneled, because that makes great sense. But that we've got 100 communities, the Trout Spawn Lake folk, Wolf Lake, Crown Lake, they're in Ward 3. They are technically within the Dorset community, but they're miles and miles and miles away. And what they cherish is their lake community, perhaps more than what they're affiliated to 32 kilometers down the road. And so by taking culture to where people are, I sort of see an opportunity to hit on Liz's questions about creating an overarching sense of place and community in that, and to use the docks and landings example as just an example, if you go to your landing at the beginning of the summer and you put your boat in and you see, oh, look, there's, here's a plaque that is recognizing the importance of our lake and our lake community and a little bit of the history, the wonderful history here. And at the top of the plaque, there's a sign saying, beautiful Algonquin Highlands, adventure begins here. I think that creates a sense of I am recognized and my community is recognized for what we are and what we offer to the overarching township. And I feel more part of that township for that recognition. So, it is very, very, very much a work in progress. But, to Liz's points, I really think there are ways that we can take those on board very strongly. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's exciting that there are exactly those examples to explore, and there are probably 100 of them. And I feel, so having been involved since the very beginning of this plan, I feel more excited about this plan and what's ahead for it, for the community than I have for all these years. We've been struggling and struggling and struggling. I think we're onto something now, and it's because we were stuck with a plan that was just too big and cumbersome and was almost like shaking a finger at people about you shall do this and you need to achieve this outcome. We need to reimagine the outcomes based on the existing plan. There was a whole process, there was a grant, there was a whole process of public consultation and open houses, and we got special permission from the ministry to include the Lake of Bays side of Dorset, because Dorset itself is not just one side of the road. So anyways, so much work's gone into it. I really feel like we're onto something now.
I know that we're getting towards the end of the year and you've got a lot of work ahead of you, but I'm just wondering if you think that the group is going to be able to bring some thoughts for what you would like to achieve next year in particular, prior to projects and priorities. Probably not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
That's why the request is, continue to let the group frame this out, transfer the money into the appropriate reserves, because there was $11,000 council agreed to be used to redo the plan. The group has said, we don't need the 11,000 to do the plan. We think we can do it ourselves. And because it's a whole different kind of document. And then that reserve then could be toward, a project. So I think it's probably already there a little bit. And then reappoint the working group. Well, you can't tell the new council what to do, but then once the plan is approved, so it would come back to council, and then get more people on board and get going. Anyway, that's the request. It was a good discussion. There's been 2 good discussions from the working group, and that is the request. So looking for thoughts from council on that. I think there's 2 people who are prepared to say yes, but anyway.
I say yes.
Go ahead. Okay, then thank you for that support. And it's funny, I feel like I'm in a strange place because I was on that at the beginning, and then I was off because the mayor doesn't sit on these kinds of committees. It's for members of council to be appointed to. But I went back on it because there was a sense of having lost its way, and I've just sort of been re-enthused about it. And now I want to go back on as a citizen. So I have a foot in both camps right at the moment. So, but go ahead.
By Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, council receives a report from the Cultural Resources Committee Working Group dated October 13th, 2022, and council supports the general principles and goals of the cultural plan. And the council supports and improves the continuation of the reimagining of the existing plan for presentation to council at a future meeting, the transfer of the 2022 budgeted funds into appropriate reserves, and the reappointment of a working group in the upcoming term in anticipation of reestablishing a full cultural committee once the plan is reimagined and approved.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for that. Sean, back to you. The world of planning. First up is a proposed shore road allowance closing.
Yes, this is an application for a property on Wolf Lake. It's to close the shore road allowance in front of the property. It is a developed lot with a dwelling that partially encroaches onto the shore road allowance. But staff are recommending that it proceed through the regular process to close that shore road allowance.
Questions, comments from council? Go ahead.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives report PL 12122 regarding the proposed shore road allowance closing fronting property located at part of lot 18, concession 12, geographic township of Livingston, Adam, Wolf Lake, and that council approves in principle application OSRA 1922 made to stop up and close and convey the said shoreline road allowance and request the applicants to proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Sorry, I just lost my place here. The proposed shore allowance closing in the name of Proctor. Bit of a story here.
Yes, this is a property. This property and the adjacent property has been before council a couple times. It is surrounding a proposed shore road closure in front of both lots. So this is from the neighboring property, last name Proctor. It does include a proposed deviated line, whereas council approved a straight line projection for the adjacent lands before. So those 2 lot line projections would not match up. Based on staff review of both applications, it looks like no agreement will be reached in the near future between both property owners on what this projection of the lot line should look like. So staff would recommend that council rescind the original resolution approving in principle the adjacent lands and then denying this application until such time both parties bring forward a joint application with an agreed upon lot line projection for council consideration.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Danielson. You just turned us there.
I completely concur with your recommendation, Sean. I think that this is similar to other situations that we found ourselves in, and we have fairly consistently tried to see the individuals resolve the matter between themselves, that it's very challenging for us to try and resolve. It's unfortunate that we gave tentative or approval in principle to one, but I concur with your recommendation. I think that's the only course of action at this point in time.
Thoughts from Councillor Shortreed?
I agree. It's starting to be a trend, but I agree completely. They need to resolve the issue themselves before we can do anything about it.
Councillor Dayu, these are your folks. I don't mean your folks as in your parents or anything. Your constituents.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Thanks. And I have spoken quite extensively with both property owners. And it does sadden me that there is acrimony here that does extend beyond this little snippet of shoreline and also back in the years. On a positive note, in my conversations with each of them individually, each expressed a willingness to try to come to an agreement with the other on a line projection for their properties. And so I do think, I do very much concur with Sean's recommendation that we hit the pause button on this until that time that the property owners are able to reach that agreement. And I wish them luck doing it. I know that they've struggled to communicate. I hope personally that they seek an unbiased mediator for that conversation, but that's entirely their wheelhouse to decide how they want to do that. But I do support the recommendation and look forward to an agreed line projection brought back to council in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well, and it's unfortunate, when there are long-standing disputes. It's not our job to be judge and jury around those things. So if they can sort out something to bring back to us, so we can go through the formal land use planning process, then I look forward to that, and hopefully they can see their way to do that. So any further comments? Go ahead, please.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Dennison. Be it resolved, council receives report PL 12222 regarding proposed shore road allowance closing fronting property located at part of lot 22, concession for geographic township of McClintock, Proctor, Quagama Lake. And that council denies application OSRA 2022 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at part of lot 22, concession for geographic township of McClintock, Proctor, Quagama Lake. And that council rescind the resolution passed at its regular meeting of June 16th, 2022 regarding application OSRA 1222 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at part of lot 22, concession for geographic township of McClintock, McGuire, Quagama Lake, and the council denies application OSRA 12-2022 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at part of lot 22, concession for geographic township of McClintock, McGuire, Quagama Lake.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Proposed shore road closing allowance on Quagama.
Yes, and my apologies. The report does note Quagama Lake, but this is actually located on Lake of Bays, on Trading Bay. So my mistake there.
Okay.
But yes, this is an application to close the shore road allowance in front of this property. Again, it's a developed lot with structures encroaching onto the shore road allowance. However, staff are recommending that the applicant proceed through the regular process to complete the closure of that shore road allowance.
Questions or comments from council? Go ahead.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dennison, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that council receives report PL 12322 regarding the proposed shore road allowance closing fronting property located at part of lot 2, concession 13, geographic township of Sherburne And the council approves in principle application OSRA 2122 made to stop up, close and convey the said shoreline road allowance and request the applicants proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Proposed shore road allowance closing on Halls, I guess this is.
It's a road.
Yes.
Oh, is it road allowance?
Yes, so this is an application to close the road allowance adjacent to this part of the property. It is a developed lot. Right now, the applicant is only entitled to purchase half of the road allowance because we have not received confirmation from the neighbor on the other side that they do not wish to close that portion of the road allowance. I understand they are in talks. So that could change in the future, but right now it's only to consider half of the road allowance. Based on staff review, it's not a road allowance that leads to water, so our policy is supportive of closing the road allowance. And staff would recommend approval in principle.
You're going to ask the same question I was going to ask.
Well, yeah, I didn't think that we necessarily encouraged the closure of road allowances, whether they led to water or not. But I would wonder in this case, it appears that this parcel of land that the applicants have got is fairly substantial, that there might at some point in time be a need for that road allowance. If say, for instance, there was a subdivision of the area that's, I don't know, I guess that's sort of northeast of the lot. There doesn't seem to be any compelling reason why this is needed. And I'm kind of questioning the need to do this.
Sean, do you have any feedback on that?
The applicants have noted that the reason they want to purchase it is really just to expand the lot, and I understand they have a garden in that area. Our policy does allow for the closure of road allowances when they do not lead to water, so it doesn't specifically say that we won't sell them or not encourage the sale of them, but in this case, it's one that could be closed should council wish to. We're not obligated to by any means, but.
Okay, Councillor Barry.
Yeah, just wanted confirmation. Does the property owner own, I guess, on the side of Old Mill Road? Do they own, or do they just own the side towards Beacon's Trail?
Go ahead, Sean.
So they do not own on the other side of the road allowance that they're looking to close? Was that the question?
Yeah.
No, so that's another property owner. So that's why they can only close half of that road allowance right now.
So wouldn't you, if there are ongoing discussions with the abutting neighbor to the back, why wouldn't we wait until we find out if the abutting neighbor wants to buy their half and do it? I'm not understanding that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And I also wonder, so I believe that this is Shalom by the lake, so Kegel's own the parcel above, because you come down the Little Hawk Road and you come in Shalom there. Now, right underneath, and the folks at home, if they're watching, can't see this, but where it says Little Hawk Road, identifies the road, under the I and the T, is that a piece of shore, is that a piece of road allowance that has been sold off to the abutting neighbors? Because it's got a line through it.
And it's confusing.
Bear with me for one moment. I'll just check my map.
Good question.
So based on the web mapping, it looks like only half of the road allowance was closed there. Oh, and the other half is owned by the neighbor on the other side. So yes, it does appear to have been closed there.
So there's that one small piece underneath the I and the T that has been divided and sold off to each of the neighbors. Then there's an existing no man's land piece of road allowance. And then there's the proposed piece to be sold, which we're only going to sell, we're considering selling one half of. That makes no sense to me at this point, but maybe I'm missing something. I'm going to go to Councillor Barry and then back to Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just to be clear, when we're saying half, are we talking the length?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's above this has already been purchased?
Just a little piece of it.
No.
Section of.
No, that's what I'm saying is there's underneath the word little, you can see there's two small rectangles and they have been divided and given to the properties either side.
Mm.
Immediately below that and the remainder or the middle portion of the road allowance is still municipal, I believe. And then the folks are asking for the next portion, which is identified in purple on our map, on the application map, to be divided lengthwise. And one half sold to the parcel outlined in red. We don't know if the person behind wants the other half.
And because the cut up part by Little Hawk or the purchase part by Little Hawk, that road would never become an access road now.
You can't get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through any of the other roads.
Who are hands? There's a hand over there.
Thank you for bringing that, raising that question, because that changes my argument. I mean, if the road can't ever be used for anything, it's already been broken up, then that sort of changes my original argument. I would still like to see us maybe wait and see, like deal with it all at once, but it's up to the rest of council.
Or at least find out if the neighboring property is not interested, then I would happily dispose of that half. But if the other person wants it, then it's a joint application and we just take care of it, easy
Yeah.
peasy. And it's for a garden. It's not for, life or limb. No offense to these folks have a big garden. I know they do. So.
Thank you. I wonder if, Sean, if you could, we asked the applicant to find out if the other property owner is interested, and if they're not, council could entertain selling the full thing to Mr. Keeble.
Yeah, I just don't want to end up having these little funny chunks of land all over the place. They make no sense. And so if council is interested in that suggestion, then Sean can go forward and have those conversations with those folks. I'm going to go to Lisa and then back to Lisa.
Sorry, so the part that's in red, the part that's being discussed today is the purple.
No, she's not.
Your mic's not on.
Right, this part that we're discussing today is in purple. However, the property is actually bigger, longer than the red section. Like you're saying, sell it all to the one property owner?
No, sell the purple section to the red people. If the people on the other side of the purple line don't want their long, thin piece of road allowance, then we could, you sell half of the road allowance to the applicant, then you've got a long, skinny piece of no man's land that is just no man's land. Makes no sense.
Okay.
And it's not to the point that's been made, it's not going to be something, it can't be something. It is a piece of, there is no future development there because you can't get to it. And it's probably not permitted in the plan.
But I'm just thinking if we decided, or if there was a consideration at some point in the future to sell this applicant the whole stretch of road allowance, you end up giving them a little strip of land that's between two other owners. Would not create conflict?
I'm not sure that what I said was clear, maybe, because I meant don't just sell 33 feet to the property owner. I meant sell the full 66 feet, but just the width of the red lot.
Oh,
Sell
I
them-
thought that's what we were doing.
Sell them the whole purple line. No, this application is to cut the purple line in half.
33
Thank you.
feet. Yeah.
Thank you, that helps.
Oh, so definitely, I would agree with that. That makes much more sense than leaving this. I thought you meant this.
Going
strip.
up, I thought so.
Okay, so Sean, I think that's Jen. Sorry, I wasn't looking up because I was looking at my pretty colors on the map. What are your thoughts on this?
No, that clarifies that last little bit. I thought we were referring to the full purple strip, but if it's only half, then it does make sense to consult, but I wouldn't think it's absolutely essential to make sure that there isn't a disagreement on the other side. I'm happy to consult. Yeah.
Okay, so Sean, if you can go back and see if the applicants can, get a bit of a giddy up with any conversations with the abutting neighbor, and then we can make a decision from that. Is that what council is supporting? Okay. Did you have something else, Sean? You're
I was just
off the
gonna-
ledge on that?
No, I was just going to add that the applicant is in the process of reaching out to that property owner, so we should have that answer fairly soon.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And, it's better to ask at the front end than go ahead with something and then, create an untenable or stressful situation at the other end. Did you write something down there?
Just to defer and report back.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Moved by Counselor Shortreed, second by Counselor Berry. Be it resolved, council receives report PL 12422 regarding proposed road allowance closing between lots 15 and 16, concession 8, geographic township of Stanhope, submitted by Sean O'Callaghan dated October 13th, 2022, and that council defer application RA 222 made to stop up and closing of a portion of the said road allowance and request staff to report back to council.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next is another road allowance closing proposal. This is in relation to the delegation we had this morning. Another bit of a slightly complicated application. And take it away, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Yes, so this is an application to close a portion of a township road allowance on Bamaba Road. It is a township maintained road year round. Based on information we've received, it looks like the road was actually constructed partially on private property and not entirely within the township road allowance. So as far as staff are aware, there was no permission for that deviation. So it is quite possible, maybe not now, but later or in the future, we may have to relocate the road to be within our road allowance boundaries. And we may require that turnaround location that is shown on the road allowance for future equipment. If equipment's larger in the future and we need that extra space, we would have that land to construct a larger turnaround should one be required. So staff are not recommending or supporting this application. It's a piece of land we would have extreme difficulty getting back in the future should it be required. There's no real benefit that staff can see for the township to sell the road allowance, and would be in the township's best interest to retain ownership of that.
And I wonder if there's a complication around you can see it on I think it's the site, the sketch, and it's the same drawing that we saw this morning, the site sketch, and you can see how the road sort of dips down onto, not township property. The road's not on road allowance. We did hear from the applicant this morning in support of his application, of course, suggesting that the subdivision for which the turnaround was created is already done, that there is currently no need for a turnaround, and that the topography doesn't support there being the building of a turnaround in terms of fill, culvert, and potential costs. So looking for your thoughts on that, Mr. O'Callaghan.
There are certainly some complications, as some topographical constraints, but it's nothing that can't be overcome should the township need that land to be used for a turnaround location. Again, perhaps not right now, but in the future, it's something I think it's worth protecting and retaining ownership of. I would also note I was on site with the public works manager who concurred with my recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. Looking for thoughts from the CAO.
I just wonder if maybe, just to point out, I guess, is regarding the comments made by the applicant this morning is, this turnaround area is desirable for the construction of a garage. So I would assume, and I haven't seen the property, but I assume, given that it would be suitable for construction of a turnaround.
Oh, in terms of that it was stated that the land doesn't support
Yeah.
the construction of a turnaround. Well, and it does say on the little plan there, which we saw, it says approximate area of existing fill. And that sort of crosses over where the proposed garage would be, were council to sell this piece of land. Sean, can you speak to that approximate area of existing fill?
Yes, so there is a portion of land there that does appear to have some gravel placed on there and leveled out. So there's a bit of a pad in that location, but no structural developments taking place.
Well, and how do we know how gravel and a sort of a pad got created on our property without permission or knowledge?
As far as I know, no permission was given through the township for that work to be taken or undertaken.
So looking for, it's a bit of an awkward one, you know, admittedly, you can see both sides of it. We've had lots of conversations about roads and delineating roads, making sure they're in the appropriate place. So thoughts from council on this? Go ahead.
Oh, I've had mixed feelings about this because I could hear the arguments that were being made, and some of them sounded reasonable. My question was why a building like that could not, because it's not a big building, could not be located on the southeastern part of the lot because it's a substantial lot. I would like to be able to see where the septic system is actually located and why there's no other space on the lot, given that they're accessing the lot from Hollow Road and the driveways going through, you know, a substantial area, why there's no other location that would be suitable for that building.
There is a required setback from hydro lines for building. And that dotted line is a hydro line. And so that essentially would eliminate a lot of, just above the word driveway, a lot of that in there, because you'd have to have setback from the hydro lines. I'm going to go to Councillor Dayu and then Councillor Shortreed.
Two questions. One is, as Adam has been on site, maybe you could speak for him in this instance. Are there any current difficulties getting our maintenance trucks around? Or is there already thoughts or scope for changing it for our current fleet of maintenance vehicles? That's question number one. Question number two is, Mr. Lepalm this morning did speak of a desire to compromise on the space, if that's possible. Could you give your thoughts on whether it is possible, and if yes, how that conversation is going?
So to answer your first question, I believe our public works staff have been making do with the existing turnaround that's there. However, again, I just would note that it seems to be trespassing onto private property, so there may be a requirement to relocate that in the future. With respect to only closing a portion of it, again, I would not support that. Given the topographical constraints, I think we would need all the land that's shown on that turnaround area for future construction, should it be required.
Somebody else? Oh, you did. Sorry, Councillor Shortreed.
Just hypothetically, Sean, does the topographic and the hydro lines impede them in potentially getting an approval from a committee of adjustment to put it somewhere else?
So the committee could not reduce the setback to a hydro line, but the topographical constraints is something that has been considered in the past for supporting an application to reduce setbacks. So it's, you know, each application is evaluated on its own merits, but it's certainly something that could be considered.
So there is potential to come to the committee of adjustment for a minor variance. There is somewhere to do it.
Oh, yes, most certainly.
Okay.
Oh,
that's good.
Councillor Barry.
And as far as the discussion about a reduced addition? Is that a possibility instead of the proposed lot line being where it's indicated? Could that encroach closer to the existing property instead of out into the circular area, I guess?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Could the proposed, could we take less? Could he take less?
I think Sean spoke to that, based on, and I think that's the question that Councillor Dayu asked is what did the Public Works Manager say? And so we currently have a turnaround, an existing turnaround, that appears to be on private property. So if the private property owner said, get your turnaround off my property, they may never, but they could. Then we're gonna have to put a turnaround somewhere because we plow the road. So then if you sell part of that turnaround that has been established in the plan, what would you propose we do if there wasn't enough space to turn around? And it doesn't matter what space others think we need. I would rely on the guidance of the Public Works Manager for how much space he needs to turn a plow around in. Go ahead.
Are you going to investigate further if it is on private road, or are we just leaving it as is? Mama.
I guess I would be looking for council direction on that.
It's not part of the application. It's a consideration for the future. I mean, I don't think you could do much more unless you're prepared to undertake a survey. And I wouldn't want to just go ahead and do that unless there was a need to. For example, if the private property owner said, please take your turnaround off my property. So, I mean, so thank you for the question about the committee of adjustment. If there is space elsewhere on the property for a garage with the committee of adjustment application, then that should be the win-win for both parties. In my opinion. What do you think?
I concur completely.
Councillor Barry. Councillor Dayu, what are your thoughts on this?
I wonder, Sean, just for absolute clarity, because I haven't followed the bouncing ball visually 100%, between the plan of subdivision, the site sketch, and the property index map, which is the best document for viewing where we are over private property? I'd like to see it, and I'm not sure if I've found the right visual.
It is I believe it's the site sketch that was prepared by Marie Poirier's office.
Okay, so could you talk me through the lines? Where would the
Yes.
private property be?
Bear with me, I'm just opening it.
Yeah.
So you see Bamaba Road written there.
Yep.
There's a hatched or a broken line that shows the actual road limits. It's identified on the plan as the road limits.
Yep.
And then there's another line running sort of through that turnaround area, which indicates the property lines.
Yep.
So it's only a small portion, but it is nonetheless a portion of the road that is actually on private property based on this drawing.
So the larger hatch that's running not quite perpendicular, but well, it's not perpendicular. But the larger hatch that is in line with the words Bamaba Road, but off to the right, that's the private property line?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I see that.
So you can see how the existing, it says approximate limits of actual road based on aerial imagery.
Yeah.
And you can see that there's the portion of that sort of slanty road. That's where the private property is.
Okay. Okay. I got that.
Deputy Mayor
Thank
Davis.
you.
So just for further clarification on that, Sean, when I'm looking at the plan of subdivision sketch, does that mean that the private property that you're referring to is, sorry, is on lots 40 and 41? It's part of lots 40 and 41?
No, on the other side, the south side of Bamaba. So directly south of 41 and 40.
Oh, I don't see on the plan of subdivision individual lots there.
No, so it's a larger parcel of land. You'll see it's identified as instrument number 30003.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
If there's room on the property for the building with the committee of adjustment application, that's good. That's suitable for me.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. Councillor Dayu?
Yeah, I would concur. It's not an easy thing, but this might be the best chance we've all got.
Okay. That would be governance by concurrence. Go ahead.
By Councillor Short, second by Deputy Mayor Dennison. Be it resolved, Council receives report PL 12522 regarding proposed shore road allowance closing proposed road allowance closing adjacent to part of lots 22 and 23. Concession 11, Geographic Township of Sherburne, submitted by Sean O'Callaghan, dated October 13th, 2022. And the council concurs with the recommendation made in the said report and denies application RA 322 made to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the road allowance adjacent to part of lots 22 and 23. Concession 11, Geographic Township of Sherburne, La Palm.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And before we move to the next one, there are advantages to not having a room full of people in the current environment. However, it has been in the past where when we've said, is it, you mean the yellow part? What's the green part that Sean would walk up and point to the screen and show us? We've lost that. And I'm sure I would concur that this trying to figure out the last two applications has been very frustrating. So I'm going to throw it back to all the IT people. Is there some way that there can be a screen sharing with like a little colored dot or something so that Sean can say, I mean here, or I mean here, or anyway, just leave that with you. There must be an easier way. If I were a member of the public sitting at home, I would think, what the heck are they talking about? And I think, you know, as part of our, commitment that we've made for many years about, easy conversations, that we need to technologically advance in that regard if we can. So, go ahead.
Well, I think earlier I may have sparked a little bit of conversation with respect to what might work or what different things we might do. And that would fold into that nicely.
It would, well, continued refinement, right? You never get it right the first time. There's oftentimes you have to just keep refining things till you get them where you need them to be. Okay, so proposed Rogers Telecommunications Tower.
Yes, this is a proposed tower that's located on a property at 1138 Moyes Trail near Wren Lake. It is a Rogers tower that's being proposed. It is 60 meters in height is what's being proposed. My understanding from the applicant is no lighting will be required on top of the tower. They've also noted that an environmental assessment will need to be completed, given that it's part of the EORN project. So based on staff's review, the applicant has followed the policy of the township with respect to telecommunication towers. So staff would recommend that council support the proposal and that we can forward a letter of concurrence to them to support their application.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Jen's knitting her brow. She's thinking of what she's going to say, I can tell. Councillor Dayu. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
Okay, great. I'm not sure what happened there. There was a little a little fluke that happened right there. I guess I know that we've got a procedure and all members of the public are encouraged to follow what's going on in the township and what we're talking about and what I appreciate all of that. I take pause in the appearance that there was only one person at the public meeting. Is that correct, Sean?
Yes, that is correct.
So I just wonder if there are people who have not continued to be aware and are going to be concerned about this, but there you have it. That's why.
That's the same question I had raised is, and so Sean, perhaps you can, well, two things. We know that council, we are not the approval authority for cell towers. We can just simply say that an organization did or did not follow our individual plan. Sean, can you remind us what the consultation process that we asked for in this? It's quite extensive because we made the radius much bigger than the Industry Canada circle. So Sean, can you tell us about the distance and who would have been notified and how?
Yes, so the applicant needs to notify by mail properties within 500 meters of the tower location. They need to post a sign on the property as well as advertise in a local newspaper. So they did complete all of those requirements.
Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Could you tell me the date of the public meeting, Sean?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar. I didn't have that written down. It was September 21st this year.
It would seem to me that they have met the requirements that we've laid out for them. And I understand the concern that Councillor Dayu might have, because it is a bit of a more remote location that might create some issues, but I'm just, the reason I asked for the date, it seemed like that might not be the most timely time to hold a public meeting, given that a lot of people are gone then. But if they were notified by mail and met all the requirements of what we've asked them to do.
Yeah, and I wonder, again, you can put a process in place, which we did, and we extended the radius of public consultation around towers. What I can't seem to get my teeth around here is on the GIS plan is on the property outlined in red. I don't see among the documents where exactly the tower location is and the distance, because I'm not looking at, well, yes, there's a scale there, but that would be math. So could this be the case where none of the people on Wren Lake who are going to see this thing were within the 500 meters and didn't get notified, and when they see a tower go up, they're going to be very upset. And so we can't really do anything about that now because that's what our policy says. But I seem to recall, did we not ask that the nearest lake association or something be notified? That seems to just stick in my head some way. So Sean, did you?
So I have a map here that does show the properties who were circulated. So I could perhaps share my screen if council wishes, or if I have.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. And the reason I say that is because we're talking about continual refinement of processes. Have we set ourselves an unintentional trap wherein a tower can be located where the 500 meters doesn't touch the people who will in fact be most impacted? So is there something else to do around that? Is there some policy refinement going forward that can make sure that the right people get notified? Okay, so all the people then in green. Okay, so that's good. Those are the people I'm most concerned about being impacted, right? Because if you're on the top side of Wren, I can't see the name of the road and I don't No, the other one on the other side of the water. You're the people, if you're on this side of it,
Mhm.
it's behind you. The tower's behind you. But if you're across Wren Lake, right there where Sean's got his little hand, you're going to be looking at it.
Yeah.
In theory. And those are the people that I'm most concerned about.
Yeah.
Who will be going to their properties and saying, well, I wasn't notified and how the heck did that get there? But they were notified. So that I think probably answers Jen's question as well. Sean?
And one of the property or the person who did attend the public meeting was someone who was across the lake, and they were worried about what the tower would look like. And so the agent for the applicant did pull up some aerial photos, and they were satisfied with that.
Okay, Councillor Dayu.
Sorry, maybe I don't understand, but it appeared from Sean's map that the folks across the water had not been notified. They were not within that circle. But you're saying, Madam Mayor, that they were notified. Could we just clarify that?
Yes, we should clarify that. I could have been mistaken. I assumed that if they were in green, they had been notified, but you're right, maybe it's the circle.
It's the circle.
I understand that.
Right, yes, my apologies. So it's the people inside the circle that were notified, and there was one attendee who happened to be from across over there.
Yes.
So it's the people across who are likely to be the most impacted visually, and they have not been asked to participate. And I don't think we can do anything about it now because we have followed the policy that we put in place. So what I'm suggesting is going forward, food for thought. Is there a possibility of further refining that? I think what we had done is we made the circle, the radius of the circle as big as the county GIS would let us. Is that correct? So am I recalling that correctly? We did this a number of years ago. Anyway, we can't do anything about it now, but just think about it in the future because we're going to hear about this and it's an unintended consequence, even though we put a lot of work at the front end into making this policy more robust than the Industry Canada requirement. Councillor Barry.
Just in reading this, and I did go fairly deep into this, but just also brought up the discussion we had at budget and with the OP in regards to night sky policy. Is there any idea when that might be coming forward in regards to another level of, I mean, they're saying there's not, but there could be, and I just think it's like another layer that protects the night sky. If
Yeah,
if we have a policy around.
to-do list, isn't it? Sean, can you speak to that? Where are you on that?
Yes, so I have been doing some background research and looking at examples that exist in other municipalities. So again, unfortunately, I haven't been able to bring that forward to council yet, but it is something that staff are working on as time permits.
Okay, so it's in the hopper. Okay, so the choices, I don't know, aren't any choices. They've followed our policy. We can say no, but Industry Canada can still approve the tower, and it's part of the EORN project, so it's a bit of a conflict there.
Well, and that's one of the, I just wanted to make a comment about the EORN project, that it's, from what I understand, there's a real detailed process involved. Once they have found a site that's suitable for their processes and got approval and gone through the whole, there's a huge process that they need to go through to get site approval. That should, for some reason, that site be turned down, there is no guarantee that they'll look for another location in that area, that they will just simply, there'll be a gap there. And that's what EORN's trying to resolve, are the gaps. And then you get into the conflict between, night skies, visuals of towers and the urgent need for internet and cell service.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people in Algonquin Highlands who can't even call 911 if they need it. So, okay, so we're Sean, can you would you concur that the process has been met? So we're fine for this, even if there are some unintended consequences across the water. That's a yes. I think you're nodding there.
Yes, yeah, no, the process has been adhered to.
And that council could look at refinement of that policy if it wanted to going forward, just to make sure that those folks are contacted. I remember that we talked about that. The topography of the county and the township is such that the person who could be most affected they're the next lake over. It's just sweet that we need to make sure there's some way that more people than less can be part of this process. I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Barry, and Councillor Dayu.
Well, and part of that conversation came up when we were talking about the placement of solar panels.
Yes,
Almost exactly the same argument that
Yep.
there was notification within a certain area, but it didn't consider the other side of the lake where it would be very visual.
Well, that's right, in a way, because it was in Carnarvon facing west, and there was a risk that people on the western side of Boshkung Lake would have the solar panels like reflecting light at a certain time of day. And yet they weren't consulted because that's the process. So anyway, go on.
And another area that we talked about it too is in regards to the cultural plan and vistas that are recognized within our municipality.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Councillor Dayu.
Not being a telecommunications person at all, I would like to think that a line of sight policy could be less hassle for a telecom company than for our own township, because they are working with maps that have topography layers and altitudes, and that's what they do when they find, I think, when they find these locations, is to really look at all of those things with tools that we don't necessarily have. So a consideration could be a line of sight policy moving ahead.
Yeah, so we'll just leave that. The CAO's made a note. I saw her scribbling. So some of you will see that possibly coming forward in the future for a look-see. Put it on the list. Okay, so any further comments on this? Go ahead.
Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor Short. Read be it resolved, council receives report PL 12622 regarding proposed Rogers Telecommunications Tower Site C8524 submitted by Sean O'Callaghan dated October 13th, 2022. That council is satisfied the procedures in the township's telecommunication facility installations policy has been followed in order to comply with the requirements for the consultation with the public and land use authority for the tower proposal. And further, council directs staff to advise Rogers Communications Inc. that council supports the installation of a 60-meter telecommunications tower known as Rogers Site C8524, 1138 Moise Trail, part of lots 8, 9, and 10, concession A, geographic township of Sherburne, Wren Lake.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council.
External board meetings is next. I'm just going to look for any hands in the air for anybody who has attended anything in relation to their committees. I did invite Councillor Dayu to join me on the Muskoka River Watershed Communications Committee because it is in her ward. And I would suggest, it won't be my appointment, but would suggest that appointment remain with her going forward in the new term, but we'll leave that to whoever's sitting here. Is there anything anybody else wants to say about any of these external boards? No. Yeah, anything for Ewan?
Well, there is, we did get a bit of an update. My apologies. There is a little bit of an update on Eorn's project. It's not specific to Halliburton County, but the latest numbers as of November, it says November the 14th. Upgrades to existing towers. There were 312 planned in Eastern Ontario, and 220 of those upgrades have been done. New tower construction, there were 266 planned, only 4 of the new towers. What they did was look at the upgrades that they needed to do first and get that work done, and then move on to the new towers. New co-locations between service providers, there were 74 planned, 6 of those are done. And land use authorities or approvals given for lots that they want to use. There were 266 planned and 125 of those have been completed. And that was a big part of the job. So that's the update on Eorn and how things are going. So they are really pleased with their progress. They feel that they're somewhat ahead of schedule. And we look forward to more work being completed.
Thank you for that. Anything else? Nothing else. Okay, then we have correspondence. Nothing's moved, but I will just want to, because it will turn up when I'm not here. I did forward this to the clerk for inclusion. There is a letter from the Honorable Graydon Smith, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry. It'll be included in the next round of correspondence. So it's simply confirmed, which is not really what we were looking for, but confirmed the Livingston Lake situation, once again saying it's your shore road allowance. And anyway, that's not what we were looking for. And the letter says the ministry appreciates the concerns you've raised within your letter and would be pleased to engage in broader discussions around crown land management within your municipality. And then it gives Jason Lorbetsky, the district supervisor for the Perry Sound district, to be part of that. Wrong district, so it's only part of it. We also need the Bancroft side, and the reason that we had requested an audience, I suppose, with ministry staff or the minister himself, which I doubt we'd get, around the crown land issues, is it's in 2 jurisdictions. It's in both Bancroft and Perry Sound, and I was hoping for, no offense to Mr. Lorbetsky, but I was hoping for somebody a little higher up the food chain. So I will leave that. That will be on the next. Won't be on the 28th, but it'll be in the new council's correspondence. And somebody will have to pick up the torch on that. So just a little update on that correspondence. But I think we have a resolution for the correspondence listing.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives the October 13th, 2022 correspondence listing for information.
All in favor? Carried. Bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. 2022-100 to provide for the setting of salary and wages for the year 2022. 2022-101 to appoint a deputy treasurer for the corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands. 2022-102 to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a fire protection agreement between the Township of Algonquin Highlands and the municipality of Dysart et al. 2022-103 to appoint a deputy clerk for the corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands. 2022-104 to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement between the corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands and GHD Digital for GovStack CMS website design and hosting services under the AMO agreement. 2022-105 to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement between the corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands and Francis Thomas Contracting for the plowing of Big East parking lot for the 2022-2023 winter season. 2022-106 to delegate to the County of Haliburton to pass a bylaw to prohibit or regulate the destruction of injuring of trees and native vegetation, and to protect the dumping or placing of fill, removal of topsoil, or alteration of the grade of land on shoreline properties in the County of Haliburton.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, bylaw 2022-107 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its October 13th, 2022 regular meeting be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And adjournment.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the October 13th, 2022 regular meeting is hereby adjourned at 1:58 p.m.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are adjourned.